Oh, it was like,
I bought that.
Jeff had like a 6 or 7, and then like another .2 or something, you know, or 2 something.
No, it was 8.
Oh,
8
8?
point,
Oh.
yeah.
Good.
That was a good, I couldn't bid as high, but that was a good deal for him because it abuts all the other land they have right on the other
What
side.
did you get that for? You remember? Top of your head?
And it was 55, I think. Yeah, yeah. Right, that was more than I could justify.
That's the problem with this. They're trying to get $500,000 for that lot right now.
That one alone, or the combined?
I think that one alone.
Oh, okay.
Getting dark out. Getting dark out.
Oh, God, yes, I'm sorry.
This one where the changes were, or were they more?
There were multiple.
I can do that with you,
I can give you a quote. It's mostly insurance.
Grandkid get to the park yet? Grandkid get to the park yet?
There were a lot of notes added.
Looked at their balcony that you could see 4 playgrounds right there.
We are signing this?
That is a healthy change. It's a decent increase.
Yeah.
When's the next conservation meeting? First Tuesday, right?
Well, when did you send out a note? I think it might be Wednesday. Linda, when did you recommend changing the Conservation Commission meeting to?
Wednesday.
To the complex with-
No, I just got something I want to put in the ear of the Conservation Committee, but for recreation, where we overlap all the time, I'm just going to suggest we move down to the community center for those guys. So no problem for conflict right now. We'll be okay with that. I'll use my phone.
I'm on the first page.
Yes. See, Jim said if we look at his table, Thanksgiving too, so, you know. All right, man, I gotta know, that little window right above your little porch, there's always light on every time I go by, like 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. You drive up your driveway, you get the porch, the window right above your porch, right at the corner of the house. Lights on all the time.
Right on the corner or a little further down?
In one end.
The hallway, my kids leave it on all the time.
I go by
Everyone leaves.
They demand it
one
on,
light on.
6:30.
they demand it on all night long. And then, yeah, I turn it off when I get up in the morning.
Boogeyman coming, or?
Yep.
You don't have a light on at all? You don't turn the light?
I have just like this very small little, like, night light, like up in, it glows over the cathedral.
How long, he spent some time like sleeping in the desert. And I think he could sleep without a night
Sure, they'll
light.
fall upstairs and go to the bathroom. That's fine.
Well, we actually, right across the hall upstairs is the bathroom, we have little flat blue lights
yeah.
plugged in. We just pretty much have them, people trip over the dogs in the night. Well, they're both on the bed with us, so.
Your green light on? I think you're unplugged. Yep.
There could be a reason for that. There could be a reason for that. We're already starting to cut budgets, so see, there you go, right there.
Matter where it goes into.
Probably not. Test. Oh, mine works.
No,
Who's
hot?
Thank you.
Something's happening. Okay, 6 o'clock.
My Fitbit says
Then right here.
6:01.
Okay,
Oh,
everybody ready? Hey, good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock, and as chair of the select board, I'm calling the meeting to order with a roll call. Jim?
here,
Beth? Here. Tim?
here.
Matt?
Present.
And Hal. I'd like everybody to rise to the pledge if you can, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this is a work session, so we're not taking public comment at this one, and we are going to get into the budget, but before we do that, I'd like to just make one announcement, and that is that we had our town tax deeded property sale this past weekend. Walter, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but the gross revenues were $900,000. The taxes that we get back, we don't get all of that $900,000. I want to make that clear. The taxes we get back were $700,000. That we do get, and that will go, just like any other taxes that we collect, goes into our tax fund and will be used as part of the calculation for setting the tax rate when we do that in approximately early November. The buyer's premium that's paid by the buyers is what pays the auctioneer for all his and his company's efforts, so that cost is not incurred to the town. So when we say we net the $700,000, we indeed net all of that. If you have any questions on this, we're not going to take them up now. You can call Walter or email Walter at the office tomorrow. But I think we did pretty well. We had run out of registration forms by 10:15, so Walter had to run down to the town hall to get more registration forms. Normally they have 30 to 40 people attending. We had 125, of which there was at least 85, if not closer to 100, actual people registered to bid. So I think that was well publicized, well attended, and quite frankly, I think we did about as good as we could. We were very, very, very fortunate that there was a lot of interest in properties in the town. Okay, we're going to move on.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Yes, please.
So that it's important to know that the funds that are reclaimed or retained by the town basically include not only the back taxes, but also include all the incurred interest, fees. There's also a statutory 10% penalty that's allowed to be taken by the town for the cost incurred in having to go through the process and so forth. So it's a combination of that becomes the liability against each property, and then whatever, we had several properties that, didn't reap enough to cover the cost. So some were big gainers and some were losers from that perspective. So, but, all in all, it certainly turned out to be, successful from a overall standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else, Walter? Okay. Nope. Then we're going to move on, and we have an approximate schedule. We'll try to adhere to that as best we can. So first up tonight, we have our police chief, Chief Drolet, or Drolet, Glenn? Drolet, thank you.
You said table, chief?
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
going to
Chief.
say, please sit at the table.
If you want to stand.
Yeah.
Standing for years. Good evening.
Good evening.
So you have my proposed budget, and guess I'll just open it up for questions. Not many changes, not a great deal of increases. You'll see that the majority of the increase is in the salary and benefits lines.
Right.
We're also adding in a position there that we've talked about a couple of months ago at a meeting, so that's generally your largest increases there.
Glenn, as part of that, I think you also adjusted the overtime down a little bit to reflect
Correct, so I
that.
took some money out of the overtime line to adjust that towards the part-time line. It's kind of cheaper to pay part-timers to cover the shifts than paying overtime, so I kind of offset the increase in the part-time line with reducing the overtime line. You'll see there's an increase in the cruiser modems. That's just about $440. Security system camera upgrade, I added $1,000 into the budget this year to add. We had to replace the rear door of the police department. It used to have a window in it. It was kind of like just a standard door. We had people run on us. So we had to make that a secure door. With doing that, we cannot see outside anymore. So I'd like to add a camera to that back door with a monitor so the officers can see who's at that back door before they swing it open, not only to knock somebody out, but to see if there's possibly a threat or anything at that door. So I added in $1,000 there to make that adjustment. Printing is down. I cut that down to $250. Everything is going online. We print very little. It's mostly animal control stuff that we print or notices that we need in triplicate. but almost everything has gone online, so we print it off, and so it's very little stuff we have to print, business cards, stuff like that. Contractor services is up 2,000. That's just cost of doing business. The businesses still increase their fees even if we're on a default budget, so a lot of stuff goes up about 3%. Our report management system, body cameras are in that. So. Uniforms and supplies, I increased 2,000. We're just about expended that line already. The price of ammunition is skyrocketed, so that is a huge hit that comes out of that line. So that's a huge hit to that line. For our qualifications, we're required to qualify. We're required to provide ammunition to officers that go to the academy. So we need to have that on hand for them to do so. You'll see equipment purchase. It says a $7,000 increase. That's not an increase. That's just an adjustment. We closed off a line of $7,000, which was equipment, small items, and combined that into just one equipment line. So it's not really an increase. It's just a reallocation, if you will. Vehicle maintenance, I put up $1,000. We're doing okay this year, but we're still waiting for the pickup truck that we ordered back in March of 2020. Supposedly it's supposed to be built next week, but I'm waiting for the email that says it's pushed again, but we'll see. So where we're holding on to these older cars for a little longer, I felt a little comfortable adding another $1,000 in to cover those expenses. The vehicle purchase went up $4,500. That's to take account of the new vehicle purchase price and the equipment. The equipment, it's silly. It's absolutely silly the amount of money that that stuff has increased because of COVID, supposedly. It's just he's paying double of what he used to pay for electronics and stuff like that. So that covers that increase. And that looks like all the increases.
Okay, anybody have any questions for the chief?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Jim.
Only because I'm the new guy and I don't understand all this yet, so.
Speak a little closer to the mic.
Sure.
People having trouble hearing.
I saw under the police commission, and again, this is just my ignorance probably, and under the police department, the legal fees, they're two separate ones. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so that legal line is actually our prosecutor. We have a contract with a prosecutor to prosecute all of our cases.
Okay.
That's what the police department legal line is. The commission retains an attorney for any labor issues that comes. So it's two different attorneys, so.
Okay. And the commission needs its own, it couldn't like use the town one that we already have?
No, because it would be a conflict of interest. At some point, it could be the commission and the selectmen trying to resolve an issue, and you couldn't use the same attorney
okay.
to do that.
Okay. And then, yeah, the janitorial services looks kind of high. Are those contracted services?
So what that used to be, we hired our own janitor / maintenance person. Unfortunately, he left, and we haven't really been able to find anybody to fit that mold. And talking with Cheryl and Walter during this, we're looking at possibly just contracting a busy bee cleaner or something to come in. We've been doing it ourselves, the officers, and our admin's been doing it ourselves for about a year now. And it was also a kind of a cost savings measure where everything was so in question the last year and a half, 2 years, that if we didn't have to spend the money and we can just do it, we'll do it. So that $7,000 was budgeted for 3 days a week. I think it was about 6 hours a week for the entire year.
Okay.
So that would pretty much be a payroll line. If we find somebody that we end up hiring and becoming a part-time town employee, we talked about moving that line up into one of the payroll lines and closing that line out. If it stays a contract, we'd move it up into contracted services
Okay.
and readjust the amount.
That's also covered, like, if you get some drunk guy in there, and you said you have one bathroom in there, and so,
Correct. Like, we'll have to call in ServPro if someone gets sick in one of our cruisers or in the building to come and decontaminate that cruiser before it can go back in service, so we'd pay that out of that line as well.
Okay, and then you had other professional services. You get an example that was like $1,500 for.
So that includes polygraph examinations, psychological examinations, mostly for pre-employment. They're not done for free, that we have to pay. For a criminal polygraph, we can get the state police to do it, but for pre-employment,
Oh, okay.
it's a paid service. It also covers blood draws at the hospital. Anytime we have a DWI address where we believe drugs are involved, or a combination of the two, we want to do a blood draw instead of a breath test, it's $100 every time we run one of those tests, so.
So that was way up in 18 and 19. Do you feel confident that's the right number for this year?
Yes, yeah, I looked at it and saw how many we did this year, and I think, and hopefully we won't have to pay for any employment.
so can you get that back, if, like, you, if I go to the
We can ask for it in court as one of the stipulations of their sentence, whether we see it or not.
Right.
And then probably the last one under Axion, I think there were cameras and tasers. Is that maintenance?
So so we have storage we have to pay for the cloud storage. So that includes the maintenance, the cloud storage, the licenses to access those on evidence.com.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically everything. It's, paying off the equipment, the licenses, the training. It's a whole package.
Okay, cool.
That camera you want to put outside the back door, can you get an app on your phone? It's like so I can, if you'll come in, I can see who's there. I mean, is that?
We could. Our system's pretty old, so I don't know with the system. I think we'd have to upgrade the entire system to get a system that we can do that.
I was going to say, for $1,000, I don't think you're getting that.
Yeah, this is pretty much just going to be for, the installation of a new camera into the system that we have, just to get us through until hopefully a new building.
Other questions? Well, while they're pondering that, I guess, Glenn, why don't you take a couple minutes and explain why you think you need the extra person. I know you were here before the select board earlier and spoke to that, and we endorsed, at least at that time verbally, you going ahead with that. But I think it'd be good if you just maybe repeated some of the comments you made then, so it's part of the budgeting process documentation.
Yeah, sure. So right now, we have an officer that's deployed overseas for up until at least May of 2022, so that's going to leave an opening. We already have a current opening of a full-time officer that left, so we actually had 2 full-time openings. And
retirement too, right?
And one of the part-timers has decided to retire after 32 years of law enforcement, so God bless him. So we were struggling with our staffing. Hiring is not the easiest thing to do right now. So when I say we were drinking out of a fire hose, we really were drinking out of a fire hose there for a long time, being down to pretty much only 4 patrolmen to cover, 365. So back a few months ago, I came and asked for permission to kind of solve 2 problems. One, backfill the deployed officer's position, and also use that opportunity to add a new officer into the staff that we haven't added since, I believe it was 2008. We haven't added a new position. So it's been quite a few years. Our calls for service increase over and over every year. When I started here 20 years, Northwood was a very high motor vehicle stop department, low calls of service. A lot of people didn't call the police. That is completely flipped on its head. We're averaging anywhere between 250 and 350 calls for service a month right now. We're close to 3,000 calls for the service for the year right now. We're around between 10 and 15 arrests per month, and motor vehicle accidents, depending on the month, higher in the winter, lower in the summer. We're handling those. So having 2 officers on is a huge benefit to this department. Land-wise, we're very large, we're spread out. You get a call at the Irving station, and to the Gulf, you're looking at a 15-minute response time with lights and sirens. So having 2 officers that can separate this town in half and cut down response time would be huge. And also it adds, having 2 officers on, it adds 1 officer can be doing investigations, call for service, stuff like that, but that leaves somebody out on the road to do motor vehicle. That's, one of the biggest complaints I hear now from the town is we just don't have time to do the motor vehicle on all the roads that need to be done. We hear, they're racing on my road. Yep, and it's almost go here for a few weeks, then we go here for a few weeks, we gotta go back. We just don't have the presence that you would see in a large town that has 5 or 6 cars on, and when you have 1 or 2 officers, you're gonna have to pick and choose your battles. So having 1 on really limits that. Having 2 makes it a little easier that 1 can handle one thing while another one's, watching the motor vehicle or, doing the directed patrols. So that's why we added that new position, and we hope to, it makes a difference and relieve some of the stress on the current officer and the current staff.
Any interviews or anybody out?
So right now, we have 2 candidates in the pipeline that they have a few more hoops to jump through, but hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we'll be extending them offers of employment.
Okay, so related question, or go back to the statistics again, please, Glenn. You said the calls, what was it, 3,000?
We're about 2,700 as
Per-
of end of September for the year.
Yeah, so how many per month did you say?
We're looking at between 250. Looking at it off the top of my head, it looks like our lowest month was 203 calls for.
Yeah, so order of magnitude 250 per month. So almost 10 calls a day. Just to, and then.
Then you add, and that's strictly someone picks up the phone and calls us. That's not, motor vehicle stops are not in that. That's not the business and property checks that we complete every single day and night as long as.
That's just what.
That's, you call the police and say anything from, there's a loose dog in my yard, to, I'm being assaulted. That's,
Right.
Yeah,
it could be a whole range there.
correct.
Yeah.
So you add in the property checks that the officers are doing, that's about 300 a month that they do with all the businesses, the home checks, the vacation checks that we do, motor vehicle stops. I'm looking at it right around 150 to 200 a month. So, you add it all together, you're close to 10,000, no, probably not that high, but
Well,
a year,
you're
you're getting
talking-
up.
400 to 500 a month.
That adds up quickly if you
Well,
take
times
everything and put
12
it
is
together, what we
6,000.
have to do. So,
6,000, that's a lot. So you talked about hiring folks, or Tim asked about hiring folks. Are we attracting folks at the wages we're paying?
we were
sounds
not.
like-
So we've made some adjustments. The commission has looked at it. Our budget is looking pretty healthy this year, so we're using some of that money to try to adjust the younger officers up the pay scale so we can add or advertise for a higher rate. We were under 40,000 in neighboring towns that don't have 24-hour service. We're starting at $48,000. So when you look at coming in for $10,000 more going to work somewhere that's lower activity and less hours, it's kind of a done deal. So if I lose somebody to Concord, if I lose somebody to Manchester for a higher raise or higher wage, I won't be able to, hey, good luck to you. I
that's
certainly can't lose officers to smaller departments just over money. That's
So
just,
the wage rates that are in here, do they reflect what you need?
they do. The proposed budget has the proposed and what the current wages will be.
Because from my perspective, what people say to me is, well, it doesn't do any good to budget it if we're not going to be able to get them. So you're comfortable that you can get them?
Like I said, in the next 2 weeks, I should have 2 new officers on staff.
Okay. So that, I think if that's, I guess, the case, then I guess that's the proof.
And the biggest thing, you know, and I think I told you in this meeting, is that we tried a hiring process. We got 80% away through the process. He called up and asked how much he was going to get paid. I told him, and he turned us down and went to a smaller town because they were going to pay more. So, you know, we're chasing our tail at that point, that if we can't offer the wages, we're spending money on people, they're going to leave to go somewhere else for more money.
Well, and then we retrain and pay for that. And,
Correct.
yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but you're comfortable with the wage rate here?
It's not as high as I would like to have put it, but I think I found a happy medium, if you will, that it's high enough to attract them, and
When you use
but
your
not
charm and
enough that
wit
it's going
otherwise,
to, you know, kill the budget, if you will.
Okay. Other questions? Matt?
So, with your lieutenant being deployed, we should see about a 25% cost savings on that particular salary line?
So for this, so right now, I think my salary line to date is at 47% remaining. I mean, because we have that line, his salary, plus the full-time officer that hasn't been here the entire year.
Right.
So you're looking at savings in those lines of close to probably, including benefits and all, I mean,
But I'm
I
thinking
think the
even
last projection was about 100.
looking forward to 2022, I know you don't want to mess with that line because, you know, you want to save that line at what it is for, you know, hopefully we're going to pass the budget, and then you want that line to be correct for moving forward. My only thought is you're going to potentially wind up with a pretty significant savings on your salary line, given
Yes.
about a quarter of the year still away, plus Medicaid, Social Security, all, you know, all that payroll stuff. So I'm just wondering, you know, because that works out to a decent chunk of change that I don't know how you would absorb it anywhere else without potentially shooting yourself in the foot down the road. But I just want to be, you know, thoughtful about, is there a way to, knowing that the potential for about a 25% savings on that particular line exists for 2022, is there a way to reflect that somewhere else?
I'm not quite clear on what you're asking. Are you talking about just the lieutenant's line, Matt?
The lieutenant's line,
Oh,
right,
okay.
should, the 2022 actual should come in at about 75% of what's on that line, best guess.
I understand what you're
Right?
saying now, yeah. But just that line? I thought
Just
you were
that
talking-
line.
Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, I don't know exactly how you would reflect that or make that up somewhere else. I don't know that it's possible.
What's your thought, Walter?
You know, I'm also okay with the surplus on that line at the end of the year.
I'm not so sure we could do that, because by USERA standards, we have to hold his job.
Right.
So if he goes and gets deployed.
Right, that's what, I wouldn't want to touch that
May.
line.
Right, but if we cut it somewhere else and he's not supposed to come back from May, and all of a sudden things change and he's back in February,
Then
I
you're
don't
in
have
trouble.
that savings. So
Yeah.
I think it's a risky move.
Yeah, no, I don't know that there's a good answer
Yeah.
for it at
Back in
all.
October either, you know?
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Been there.
No, I don't know that there's a good answer to it, except to say that, much like right now, for year-to-date, you look great on your salary line, as much as you don't want to look that great on your salary line.
Right.
Other questions? I got one more, and maybe it's between you and Walter to answer this. Is anything, are any of these line items potential for us to cover via the Recovery Act funds that we're getting, that we actually have in our coffers? I don't remember anything that I don't think anybody recommended anything or suggested anything, but I want to ask the question specifically. So like, for example, could it cover a salary?
No, not a salary directly. And again, it's only because of the way the funds are being controlled and the guidelines are. The only thing off the top of my head, and I'm not 100% sure, would be perhaps a cruiser. You know, a cruiser might possibly, that's in the budget, could possibly fall under the ARPA guidelines, but I would want to, you know, confirm that before that was made as a fact.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be asking this question of everybody that's here tonight, so maybe we could just keep a tally and just then do that confirmation or check at least. And then once we know what the answer is, then we can decide whether that's something we want to consider or not. But I would like to at least think about that type of stuff. Again, there might be some strategy, as Matt talked about, and some other things, but we got to be, I think, cognizant that that money's there, and potentially maybe we can use it.
Okay. Rumor has it the DFW might be buying an ambulance with their money, so it's kind of the same.
That's sort of where the idea came from, but, you know, I looked at the list of other things, and I didn't really see anything either, but it doesn't hurt to push a little bit and ask. So if you would do that, please.
The only concern I would have with buying a vehicle with that money is I believe you have a time frame to spend that money. You have no idea where you're going to get the cruiser. Right now, I'm sitting on 18 months waiting for a car that we can't see. So I would hate to say, yeah, cut it out of the budget, we'll buy it out of this, and I can't get a car.
Well, yeah, but Walter and Cheryl can encumber it, or they know that well, let's let them figure that out, and that can be part of the consideration. I think that's good input, but let's just keep the list, and that might be part of the consideration, that we do or don't handle it because of that comment. But let's at least make a list and see, and then have specifically talk about that, because we have that and some other suggestions, and I'd like to include those in our discussion of those
We
suggestions.
could paint the Mustang black and yellow too, so.
Oh, the red Mustang. Oh, yeah, I bet that goes pretty fast.
I don't think that's covered. I've already checked.
Okay, other questions for
It wouldn't be
the
yellow.
chief? Any other questions?
Actually, one overall question, Walter. As we're going through each of these departments and we're looking at the electricity line, are these numbers reflective of the potential savings, given the fact that we hope that someday Eversource will actually get us going on that project?
No, they're based
tagging
on, they're based on, you know, the 2021
So
costs.
actual usage numbers?
Right.
based on- Okay.
Believe it or not, I actually did get got a response from them actually at 5 o'clock today. And it looks like the program will be something that we can fit into, but based on the fact that it's taken 2.5 years to get the program, it could be.
We don't really want to plan on that
Could be
for this budget?
It'll
Yeah.
be 2.5 years
Yeah.
before we get the fixtures put in, so.
Yep.
So I think it's safe to leave it for this year and then hopefully make those adjustments for next year
Okay.
for the savings.
Okay. Anything else for the chief?
Chief, do you want to say anything about your facility? Your thoughts?
He's getting a camera.
Yeah?
I think people know where I stand and have listened to me for the last 13 years about what our facility is and what needs to be done. So we're at and probably past the point where a solution needs to be found for us and or the fire department as well. But we're at max capacity. We have been. We've got no room, no space to improve where we're at. Something needs to be done. something needs to be done, and something needs to be done rather soon on that building.
With all the storage in that three-stall, can you actually get a car in there?
We are down to one stall being able to be put in there right now.
How long's that building been up?
The garage was built the same year, I believe, that we moved in, so we're looking at 21 years. The garage was built, I think, in 2000 when we moved in.
Been there 21 years already? Holy mackerel. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Okay, well, that might be part of what we think about when we look at the CIP and discuss the warrants then. Because that's where it would come up. That's later in the schedule, correct, Walter?
Yes, yeah. It's always good to have the chief's message on record.
Yeah, good. Okay, any other questions before we excuse Glenn?
So I've got the animal control as well.
Right.
Oh, I'm
right.
sorry. Well, then let's move right on. Let's keep
Stay there
moving
for a minute, we'll
along.
go for 1 hour.
Okay. Which way do we go
Yeah,
in the
which
line item?
department number is that?
Page 14.
Okay, why don't you go over that, Glenn?
It's pretty minimal.
Yep.
Overall, it's a reduction of about $3,600 in the line. That's pretty much just coming right out of the wages. We had someone in the position for a pretty steady amount of time that we could actually see what the hours were going to be and stuff, so with that reduction, I think, we cover plenty of hours for that. You're only talking about $100, $200 lines, so.
Yeah. Questions, anybody? I didn't notice anything unusual in those. Glenn, related to this, do we still have the vehicle?
We do.
Where's, like, the gas and maintenance for that?
So that comes out of, the vehicle maintenance comes out a few years ago. One of the town administrators said, wanted to save money and cut the gas line out of it, so just eat it out of the PD gas line. I argued with him, lost the argument, he did it anyways. So I would really like it back in here, so for proper accounting. So I can say the ACO uses $300 worth of gas a year and not try to figure it out of all my other cruisers, so.
Okay, same thing with maintenance then, or was maintenance?
Maintenance stayed in its own budget,
And
correct?
that's enough for that vehicle?
We'll see, it's still sitting, it's been sitting down in Northwood garage for about a month. So, we're fighting to get it inspected, so
Yeah.
needs some body work and
Just wanted to
other
ask.
stuff, so.
Okay, so we're gonna cross our fingers on that for
Yes.
next year.
It may be coming up to the end of life here pretty soon. I believe it's a 2005, so we bought it used, so it's served its
Okay, well, we gotta
lifetime.
think about how to get that into the rotation then. Walter, would you think we'd put that on the CIP, or would we put that just directly in the budget, or?
Well, it depends on, what we're going to be looking for a vehicle and what the cost is going to be and so
What
forth.
would you get, what would you, like another van or like a pickup truck with like a sled dog kennel on it, or what would you envision your next?
6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I mean, you could get by with a pickup truck, but until you get a dog that wants to fight you, putting them in the back of a pickup truck, putting your face that close to a dog really doesn't work out well. So if you're in the van, you can kind of pull them up and in the van from a safe spot. We never had them. This is the first ACO vehicle we ever had. So that's why I kept looking and found that van at a used dealership, and I don't think we spent a ton of money on it. So it may be something we do again if we can find a used vehicle that would work. And gets used, but it's certainly not racking up the hours that a cruiser does, so, you know, buying a used vehicle at a decent price and a decent vehicle serves the purpose.
You can't get used vehicles nowadays either.
Right.
Or at least not without an exorbitant cost.
Right.
Other questions on animal control, anybody?
Do we have an officer for animal control?
We do, we do.
Do you have any other departments, Glenn, before I excuse you?
No, that's it for me. You do have the commission as well.
Yeah, we got them on the schedule.
That should do it for me.
Oh, wait a second.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you. Well, I think Al's found me another department.
No, I'm just looking, we
he's
have the
having a
police.
moment.
Did we want to do the police commission during this
Yes.
time slot?
Yeah.
No, tomorrow night. Thanks for coming, guys.
Okay,
We
well,
knew they were going to be here, that's why we
Thanks for
scheduled
hanging.
it first.
I don't have, I'm looking at mine, I didn't see police commission, okay,
Well, I
sorry.
think we put it all into the police department.
Now you're making me think, Walter.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's always a bad idea. Okay, well, let's get the police commission up and let's go through their budget.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, what page are we on that one?
7.
Thank you. For the record, you're going to have to state your names and your titles, please.
Linda Smith. Right at the moment, my title is Police Commission Administrator.
Thank you.
Nicole Rodler, I'm the chair of the Police Commission.
Thanks. Anything you want to say about your budget?
We reduced the salary line to reflect, bring it down a little bit closer to actual expenditures for the last 3 or 4 years. There should still be enough in there for any potential step increase. That was the reason for that reduction. And the only other change was an increase in the equipment purchase line. The supply line, actually, you see, it's, the $64 is for the post office box rent, but I did want to add 100 to equipment. That would be a cost share with my other departments, or potentially, it's a little recorder I use for police commission meetings, and just a small item. The police commission legal, as was noted a few minutes ago, is a retainer, $200 a month by the attorney that the commission has. That varies from year to year. Some years there has been issues that have been raised, and he covers them for that retainer and stays within that $2,400. He's available both to myself and to the commission to answer any general legal questions.
Questions?
No, I like budgets that go down, so I don't have any questions.
Okay. Well, I guess, unless you have something else to say, I think we're finished.
Good job.
Am I
Thank you.
staying here for the rest of it? Okay.
Yes. Don't move. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of your other hats, Linda.
Should I
Thanks,
introduce
commissioners,
myself
for hanging out
again?
for all that excitement.
Well, yeah, now you have to
She said,
introduce
"Let us go
yourself in your new role.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night, Fred. Scott.
Wonderful.
So, do we want to
Hey,
go to
Linda.
Budget Committee, or?
Linda, excuse me, pull the mic a little bit closer.
Okay, sure thing.
Okay, we're gonna have to-
Okay.
Hey, what page are we on again?
Budget.
Land use or budget?
We're doing land use now, aren't we?
Land use
Budget,
640.
why don't we start on the budget admin on page 4?
Sure?
That comes before the others.
Okay, oh, I see, okay, yep.
Oh, down below, okay, yep.
Okay, bottom of page 4, at least on the original.
And another one that made some changes for reductions. The putting in advertising is generally once a year for the public hearing. Maybe occasionally there would be a reason to advertise for if we had vacancies, but we've been trying to do that with the website, the forum, and other items that would not present a cost factor. So that budget has gone down. The training line is now $70 per workshop, so it's estimated to allow up to 5 members or staff to attend the annual budget workshop. So that's a pretty small budget.
Yep. Any questions, anybody? No?
I just have one,
That's another one that's
it's
down.
nitpicky.
That went down, so.
I know, well, I like that too. But just under supplies,
Said that before.
under supplies, I just want to double check. So the request is 100 over last year's 200, but your note says increase in supplies due to cost of ink and envelopes for mailing. I just want to make sure that went the direction you wanted it to.
I'm assuming that's increased from what was
interesting.
spent, not what was budgeted. Am I correct on that?
Looks like the actual's been 0 for several
look.
years.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's why it goes up from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Linda, he's asking you, not me.
Actually, I thought it was increased by 100, but
It was actually decreased by 100.
I see that
It
on
was
here,
200,
but I think the intent was to,
because there hasn't been any expenses charged to it in 4 years.
Catching these things.
I don't know what happened, because on my worksheet, I'm showing 300. So I think the intention was it was a $100 increase over the 200 that had been there. I don't know how that,
Then you spent $0 the past few years.
I think that's
Or-
where the confusion is.
300.
So that should be 300, Linda?
I think when we met, Linda,
that's
we
what I had
agreed,
submitted, but,
we agreed to reduce that when we met.
okay, then that's why the note would not match the,
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will change the note.
okay.
sorry about that, yeah. Only because, again, because of the amount that was, or not spent. And again, sometimes it's not whether or not it was spent, it was just where it was allocated.
Right.
So, if there was a box of pencils for the budget committee's use, then, it probably
You're
got,
not tallying up how many envelopes for each department?
well, we are now. We're getting,
Well, our biggest expense is the printer ink. And of course, we have a printer for 4 different departments, or actually 5, so,
Right.
So is that number staying 100?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
development, do we want to go there next?
Yeah, I just wanted to just reiterate, we talked about this the other night at the select board's meeting as far as during the preparation process, there were a number of things that we reallocated to other departments in order to reflect more accurately, the cost of operating those departments. So you're going to see those things as we go through are going to be either new items in a particular budget, like some staffing. We did split staffing amongst the departments that they work within, postage and office supplies and things like that. We tried to kind of distribute those costs rather than piling them all into one particular account, because they are a cost of doing business for each one of those departments. So sure, just keep that in mind as we go through.
So can I ask you to clarify something? So the postage number that we saw, I think, was like 15,000 overall postage for everybody, and each department should add up to that 15?
If we didn't propose an increase, I can't remember what we ended up with the total gross number, if we stayed with the 15,000.
I believe we did stay with the 15. So
Okay, so that's how that would work?
Right.
That's what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't keep the 15 plus add
Right,
the
right.
department postage. Yeah.
Because I think I saw that note somewhere, 15 overall, and then I assume the rest were
Yeah,
out
allocated.
of that total.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Linda.
Yeah, go ahead. So we're moving on to,
Planning and development?
Bottom of page 5.
Bottom of 5.
yep,
One of the reductions is, again, moving the GIS cost share down to $1 again. I think we did that last year, but because of the default, that's what we had in there. I don't know if there's any questions regarding the main issue on, is the change in the salaries. Walter had suggested breaking down land use specialist and land use admin assist, 80/20, just as a rough number, to better show where those salaries are being used rather than executive office. So those are new in that section. And we have the contracted services for the planner. And you do have a handout sheet that I gave out tonight to give you a little bit better idea of a breakdown on the planner's contracted amount. The rate is going to increase from 60 to 65 at the end of this contract, which expires in 12/31 of this year. This contract is a not-to-exceed amount. Because of the variables on the planning board with applications, when they come in, how much time is involved in them, the number of them, there's really very difficult to say X amount of hours per month for the planner. So it's based on a yearly total of 520 hours. Our planner has done an exceptional job keeping underneath that amount and trying to keep up with the work as it fluctuates. Has worked out well over the last 3 or 4 years. The only other option other than increasing it to reflect that would be to reduce it. And I would have real concerns about having it that tight that we may very well have to cut service if that happens. As you can see, even back in 2018, we went over the number of hours 2019, if the rate was based on 480 hours, if we were to level fund it. Last year, the selectmen a year ago worked with Stratford Regional because our default was so far from the actual amount of the contract, and did agree to find funds within the budget to make sure that we had our planner for the last 2 months out of the year.
If I could speak to that a little bit too, having been on the planning board, Linda and James have been very good in terms of if there is a little bit of a down dip in terms of the total number of hours required for like meeting attendance and different things, then James works on some of the other items like our ordinances and things like that. So, from my perspective, we don't waste the money, and it's a not to exceed, so we always have the ability to control it lower. But, I've been at the planning board meetings, and people are not happy if you can't get through the meetings and have the services that he provides. It would not be good, so.
And I can add that there's some months where it may come in at $900 for that month's bill, and then 28 the next, 2,800. It just depends on what the workload is. The other contracted services is for our annual link on the website for the ArcGIS, the assessing and maps that we have, which is under planning. And that is 2,400, and then the increase on the contracted services would bring it up to 37 for that.
Linda, would you please talk a little bit about the Stratford Regional Planning dues and what some of the things that covers?
Yes, we have had, there are things that James has helped with that do not come under the contract, but he's helped us out with different issues relative to economic development. And there's other areas that are not part of that contract that they provide. Transportation services, we do, typically the chairman, myself, and the planner meet to work with Stratford Regional to provide information from the local level on transportation planning and the 10-year plan. That's covered. We get our handbooks, our annual handbooks. Those are provided by Stratford Regional. They are involved in a number of different, they have GIS, we've gotten maps from them. There's a variety of services that they provide.
What about the road plan? Are they assisting in some manner on that?
They're doing it, actually.
I believe it's our membership that made that.
Yeah.
It's,
Free.
yeah, that and a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's, it's part of our dues, supported by a grant that they receive directly.
That's an important part of our... So, I just wanted to highlight that a little bit, because I remember in years past, they also did like some of the maps and also even supported some of the website stuff there, or the GIS stuff
Right,
there for
right.
a little bit. And that all was through the dues.
And one of our representatives to Stratford Regional over the period of the last 5-7 years was on the executive board and was chair of the executive board. So we've had a voice in the Regional Planning Commission from Northwood, which is a nice thing to have.
Okay, questions on the planning and development?
No, I was just doing the math real quick. I mean, it looks like a big increase, but once you take the salary line that was listed elsewhere before out of the equation, it's really mean, it's just an increase in the cost for the planner, and really that's it, so.
It's just a generic question, but where does, like, is there a building, or where is this James, like, office?
Well, I'll tell you, prior to James, we had Matt Sullivan, who was our circuit rider from Stratford Regional Planning Commission, also did a fabulous job for us. And when he was our planner, there was a decision made that he would serve 8 hours a week in the town of Northwood. He ended up working up on the stage with his laptop. And we talked about it afterwards when we went with a new person, and thought, why do we need somebody here in-house for that amount of hours when they have an office that the person can work in? And so that decision was made at that point when we switched from one circuit rider to another.
Well, I mean, where is the main office? Is it, like,
It's in
Rochester?
Dover.
Oh, Dover? And then,
Actually, no, it's in Rochester now. I'm sorry, they were in Dover for many years. They're in Rochester. And so it really is very efficient, because if I have a question, we communicate, no call, he's not answering calls, he's not sitting here waiting for somebody to walk in the door, and it's worked out really well. I think his time is well spent, and he's very focused on doing the reviews, the professional advice to the board at the meetings, and it's,
and if you're just, I mean, all your recommendations, knowledge that you have, if you're happy with them, or, seems good.
James is very good. Actually, everybody that we've had recently from Stratford Regional, including when we had a fill-in, what was the woman's name when she covered a few of the meetings?
well, actually, that was Jen Sis, who's the executive director
Yeah.
of Stratford Regional, and she has come, if James is either away or
Right.
unavailable, she's come a few times as well to help out.
Linda, while you're here, would you please speak to some of the master plan items and where we're thinking about, or how we're thinking about handling those?
Yes, there is a request for a warrant article. The planning board voted to request that a warrant article be added in 2022 for $18,000 for a master plan update. It's the second sheet on that sheet that I gave, and it outlines basically an estimate of what is anticipated for the cost. That would cover the master plan update with the required sections that we need. There's been, I want to say, a good 10 years of trying to get it off the ground. And it has not worked. By the time, at least that, because it actually, now that I'm thinking about it, goes back to when we had a part-time planner in-house who was working on it, collected data, and we went through the whole visioning session and did everything, and then it just never got off the ground. So although there's a cost factor here, this is something that really should be addressed. Our master plan now goes back to 2004, and it is asking a lot for planning board members who spend at least 2 nights a week here, plus reviewing a lot of plans, applications at home,
2 nights,
to be able to do,
2 nights a month.
oh, did I say a week?
Yeah.
Probably feels like that. 2 a
Only
month.
Certain people are talking.
2 a month, and occasionally a third, to be able to accomplish drafting sections of the master plan and pulling it all together. The meetings, the last few years have been, very backlogged with COVID, and we really need to move forward with updating our master plan.
So this is to have them help us with this. And again, Linda, it's just the required sections.
Correct.
We have, how many chapters in ours?
Currently, there's probably at least 5 more that we have currently.
Right.
The potential additional chapters are noted on the bottom of the sheet.
So this might be something where if we can see if we get support for the first warrant article, then in future years, we can start saying, okay, let's do the next chapter or next 2 chapters, depending on how big they are. So this is something where we're going to we're going to put it on, hopefully put it on the warrant article, and then that lets us gauge the public's support for it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not something that we recommended for the budget, correct? We
That's
want to do a
correct.
warrant
This is
article.
recommended as a separate warrant article. And I believe that the planning board feels very strongly that they're going to go out and really try to get the support
Right.
for this as a warrant article, knowing that this is all it's going to be used for and only can be used for that by having it in the warrant article.
Any questions on that? I did want to have her speak to that. Okay, if there's no other questions, I think we'll wrap up then, Linda, unless...
Okay, got zoning board.
CBA.
Oh, sorry.
Put another hat on.
Conservation
Okay.
Commission.
What page is that, please?
That is 6, in the middle of 6. It's right underneath planning.
Yep. Okay, go ahead, Linda.
There's no real changes to that, other than the changes to the, moving the wages into that section.
Mhm. Questions, anybody?
Actually, the,
Okay, so,
there's been some minor reductions just based on the previous expenditures for 3 or 4 years. The printing and advertising is down a little bit, but there's no increases in that.
Well, that's
Advertising.
being requested up. There's a couple of spots where the request is up, but I think that makes sense. So something like printing and advertising is reflective of the need for,
Well, I know, I'm
Thinking some of the
looking
papers and
at,
stuff,
against
right?
what was requested previously, but you're right, it's against the default.
And they're still looking for people, so people out there watching, sign up, zoning board member.
Yes, thank you.
member and alternates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, down the newsletter.
Okay, questions for Linda? No. Anybody?
Be in here, okay.
Okay, so if there's no questions, I'm going to ask Walter, are we done now with Linda?
No,
No, Conservation Commission.
That's why it says et cetera.
you're learning.
Yeah, I guess I am, but not quick enough.
Where are we now?
Page 17.
Keep flipping it now. Where are we?
conservation.
Oh, all right.
Oh, it's the ETC that's getting me. That's like a technicality, Walter.
Sorry.
Okay, so conservation, Linda, please?
Okay, there's a $2 difference in that.
Questions, anybody?
The dues are down. It's just very small changes within the department, but the total amount is within $2.
Town forester's up, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
The forester seems to be one of the few spots that's, I think maybe the only spot
Well,
that's
it's
up.
actually reallocating that. For some reason, there was a number of lines that were all very similar. So we're putting all of the money into the town forest land management for the town forester, for the update of the forest management plan. The others have $1 should there be a need that comes up, that it keeps the line open, but that's it.
You understand what she's saying?
Yes, and I suppose I'm comfortable with the 0.06% increase.
Yeah, we used a rubber hose on this one.
We shaved a lot for that, yeah.
Walter, does Linda have any other items she wants to go over with us?
No, she does not.
Okay. Well, in that case, Linda, just
You all set?
just a thank you for all the different things you do for the town and do them well, so thank you.
Thank you.
I think that what I'd like to do is take a 2-minute pause, and then we'll get started with the fire department.
How's the knotweed looking up the road?
You know, it's interesting, because at first, it was a little section that you could see that must have gotten more of this
Right, yeah.
spray, because it like got very yellow immediately, and some was still green, but then even that started to turn.
My knotweed still looks very healthy, so.
Yeah, I know, so is mine. That's a question for Chris. I think it came out good.
No, I have my own drink left.
I mean, the one is not actual one.
Right, it's just keep the line open for.
There is a total legal.
In, it's on the. Show you where it is.
I can't see it with all my glasses.
Oh, okay.
It's under there. So
There's,
that is.
yeah, there's a legal, category itself, that has.
How's your truck ride? Truck or the nice ride? No, I mean, your pickup.
Uses that.
Out of the. That one except for the police or the prosecutor and the police commissioner. Everybody else comes out.
They're rough, I mean, it's, I'm sure. Not a problem. Well, it's the, I mean, the market is, seems all going. Still going.
We're going to get started if we could take our seats, please.
Actually, town has not.
What are you trying to say, Hal?
Pardon?
What are you trying to say?
I'm going to say we're moving on to the fire department. This should be pretty simple here.
I'm for that.
No, I mean keeping track of how many departments I got to cover now. So, Chief, do you have any besides the main?
Talk about the chaplain's salary.
Why don't you start with yours?
Start with what? I'm sorry.
Start with your department, please.
Yep, so there's not a ton of difference between my last proposed budget. Probably the biggest thing is actually including my salary in the budget because we've been a default for so many years. The full-time staff, obviously Captain Schwab and the other two firefighters, one of which just got his advanced EMT, and the other one is expected to have her paramedic in June. So there'll be some projected salary increases for them. For all the full-time staff, I included a 2% step. The other pretty big increase, larger increases for part-time wages, and that should give us enough money to cover the station with 2 people 24/7. But again, it's not much different than what I requested last year. Callback pay, I talked with Walter a little bit about this. Is our call firefighters make $10 an hour when they come back for calls, and as you know, Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's pay more than that. So in this budget, I propose that we have one pay rate. So if you make $15 an hour as a working shift, you make $15 an hour coming back for callbacks. Let's see.
So, maybe interrupt, or do you want to go through the whole
No,
thing?
go ahead.
So that number's down if I'm looking here, though, is it not?
It is. It is. So, because we're not spending, so I basically doubled what we spent over the last 3 years, and attribute to that, and then there's a delta, assuming that if they're making more money, they'll come back to calls more often.
Okay, so it's lower than what was budgeted, but higher than what was actual,
Correct.
at least for last year
Yep.
to date, or, excuse me, this year to date, but it's not off by much.
No.
Okay. I understand.
The rest of the next couple lines are pretty self-explanatory. Social Security, Medicare, life insurance. Let's see. Internet, that used to all be in contracted services, so we culled that out. Cell phones and equipment. We have 2 cell phones and 6 mobile data terminals that we use in our apparatus. Electricity has always been under budgeted in the default budget, so we put that up where it actually belongs. And hopefully, if we ever get the electric company to come in and do the lighting upgrade, that won't be as painful. Building maintenance and repairs. We haven't spent the money on building maintenance and repairs, but I think if we don't have a default budget, I think 10,000 is a reasonable amount. That's down 3,000 from the default. A new line this year is paramedic intercepts. Hopefully with one of our firefighters getting her paramedic, we can reduce that line. A paramedic intercept costs about $550 per call. So the more sick people we have without paramedics on duty, the more it costs. Fortunately,
No, go ahead.
fortunately, we have some really good advanced EMTs that know when they need a paramedic, as opposed to, a lot of times I'll ask, do we need a paramedic? And the advanced EMT will say, no, there's nothing they can do that I can't do. So when we call for a paramedic, generally the person really needs it.
So that person getting their EMT, the paramedic in this line, with her increase in wages, that kind of washes this line out? Or?
No, because she's only on 48 hours a week. Our other paramedic, our call paramedic, he's very active, but again, he works a full-time job as well. So there's only so much they can do, and it really, the luck of the draw. I mean, we could have a paramedic on for 24 hours and not need him, and then an hour later we need a paramedic. So ambulance billing is a new line to call out exactly what we're paying for ambulance billing. This is one of the lines we hope is overspent. That means we're collecting more money because it's a percentage of what they collect.
Yeah, we have been doing better. I mean,
Yeah.
year over year, we're up almost 40%.
Yeah, I think we were up to I'm not sure exactly, 140 last year, and then this year, last month,
Well, last year we were at 120, I thought.
20. Yes.
And then this year we're on track for 140, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. So definitely, it's all about monitoring and making sure the reports are done correctly. When the billing company has a question, get it answered right away so they get that billing out. So I think, and we've upped our fees a little bit. I think that's helped us a little bit too. So the mutual aid dispatch, that went up again this year. It's still a really good deal, $48,000 for dispatching service 24/7. We have a regional hazardous materials team that we can call on. We have a chief officer available to us 24/7 that can come out and help us if we have a fire. And that's less than the cost of one person. So I think that's a good deal. Contracted services, we kind of broke that out. Most of that is subscriptions for software that we use, emergency reporting, Tempsys, when to work scheduling, and I am responding. Office supplies, again, pretty self-explanatory. Educational is fire prevention supplies, so that, coloring books and hats and stuff for the schools. We buy smoke detectors to carry in the apparatus, so we go somewhere they don't have a smoke detector, we put one up for them. We just did that the other day. The visiting nurse called and said this elderly gentleman had no smoke detectors, so we went out and installed smoke detectors, so at least give him a fighting chance.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Under the janitorial supplies for 500,
Yep.
as we look at this, with a lot of the other janitorial services, you are like bottom barrel. You are lower than anyone else, I think. So what does that entail?
Like to pump the porta john out back,
So,
Yeah.
we buy the supplies and, whether it be window cleaner or toilet bowl cleaner, and we don't have anyone come in to do that. The firefighters do that. So
You
I don't
do
know
it
if
yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if
Okay.
that's why we're lower or not.
Yeah, because everyone else I see has a cleaning service come in.
Already there.
Keep up the good work, Chief.
Good job, thanks. Moving on.
Maybe the chaplain can help when he visits.
I'll get him some rubber gloves.
Clean the bowl out.
Other questions, Jeff? Other questions?
No, I was just honestly extremely surprised at that number and wanted to know why it was there compared to all the other numbers I have seen on this sheet. That's all. Well, thank you for,
So we do take advantage if we have some downtimes where, a lot of the other departments don't have that, like the police department, they're out in their cruisers, they're not going to be cleaning toilets. They're on
They actually are.
patrol. So,
They're doing their own too.
yeah. Fire department, some of these have changed, the lines have changed a little bit, so forgive me if I'm not quite on the mark on some of this stuff, but I am not, fire department general supplies includes the general supplies we have, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The next line is medical supplies, and that's for supplies we only use once, like Band-Aids. We use it once and throw it away. We are pretty fortunate, and that line would be a lot higher if it wasn't for Concord Hospital. Concord Hospital provides, I would say, the majority of our disposable medical supplies free of charge. So,
Is that what happened in 2019? Did that program not exist, or is that an accounting thing? The actual for 2019 for that line is 17.6. Big number.
17,006?
$85.
$85.
Yeah, interesting.
Did they really stock up in their way?
Cheryl could run a detail on that. No, that was
That's a couple of years
BC.
ago.
Yeah.
EW. Is that before you too?
What's that?
Yeah.
My guess is that's just an accounting thing. Would you imagine?
Well, let's
Yeah.
check. Make
Yeah,
sure we
I
don't
mean,
miss anything.
So I'm pretty sure, not sure if it's listed on here. What is our expenditure to date?
You're at just under 5.
Yeah.
5,000.
Okay. So, some things we don't get from Concord Hospital are pretty expensive. They're called IO needles, and those needles for one is $100. So every time we have a cardiac arrest, we use one of those needles, and so that can get a little pricey. But we try and, we shop around, we try and get the best price. Sometimes the best price is Amazon, believe it or not. So, diesel and gas just up slightly. I didn't really want to anticipate how much the price of fuel could go up. So that's kind of a wild card. We do try and use our Irving reward card to get 5 or 10 cents off a gallon as often as we can. So, uniforms pretty self-explanatory. It's just, we buy all the uniforms for the staff, whether that be uniforms for career staff or T-shirts for call firefighters. All right, we don't have any postage. Cheryl, do you know what that 612 equipment is?
That is, the lines directly above it, it's either, it's broken out between office equipment of $1,000 and then fire equipment of
Okay.
$11,000.
All right, so that makes more sense now. So we consolidated those two lines, but the equipment line, the big one, $11,000 buys, as we need, if we need to replace hose or nozzles or fittings or things like that. Testing hose usually wipes out a couple lengths of hose. We were very fortunate last year. I think we lost 5 lengths. This last year we haven't really eaten up that line very much. We've been pretty careful not to spend it because we know we got a default budget and we have to offset some of the other expenses. But we will need to. That only goes so long before we have to buy stuff. So, vehicle maintenance and repair. I didn't go up as high as as requested last year because we have some new apparatus, and that's definitely had a positive impact on what we're spending for vehicle repairs. 3 of them should be under warranty, so it shouldn't be as expensive.
Well, on that line, Chief,
Yes.
going back to 2020 actual, there was a big jump up in that. Any recollection as to what went on there?
Yes, I do, actually. That was the year we rebuilt the pump on engine 3, so that was like a $30,000 expense. So, again, that was before me. That pump,
Was it before you?
what's that?
You were here in 2020?
Yes, but
Yeah.
the expense was incurred before I came.
Sorry, what, 19?
Yeah, yeah. The day I walked in the door, the truck was in pieces on the floor.
Welcome here.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Equipment maintenance, so we have to do annual ladder testing, annual hose testing, flow test our breathing apparatus. We were fortunate this year, our breathing apparatus was new, so we didn't have to flow test that, but we'll have to do that next year. And that basically covers all those expenses. Gear purchase, again, firefighter protective clothing, and we only bought what we absolutely had to this year. But we're trying to be on a maintenance schedule, so I did bump that line up this year so that we could get back on schedule for anything we've missed this year. An average set of turnout gear cost about $3,000 a set to outfit a firefighter head to toe. And after 10 years, even if it's never been used, after 10 years, it's no good for first line service. So we give that gear to the chaplain or something. So hydrants, again, we haven't spent that in the last few years, but we do have some hydrants that are in need of repair, like the one on near Steve Bailey's house is out of service. It doesn't work at all. So some of those we have to repair, and we haven't because of the default budget the last few years. But we do have to start doing some of that. Dues, National Fire Protection Association, Fire Chiefs Association, Fire Prevention Society, New Hampshire State Firemen's Association, that's where all those dues come from. Generally, we get, like the NFPA, when we buy books and publications from them, because we're a member, we get a discount. When we go to association meetings, like the Fire Prevention Society or the Fire Chiefs Association, we get a discount because we're a member, so we do get some of that back. Training, fire department training, so anybody that goes to the fire academy or goes to a training at another fire department, that all comes into that. We have to do continuing education as well as initial certification. So people that are going to firefighter 1, firefighter 2, that's basic training. We should send them to that. And then, if somebody wants to go take driver operator or something like that, we pay for that as well. And that's a pretty conservative number. I think we could, we try and take advantage of free training. Like we had 3 firefighters out in New Mexico taking training this week that's funded by the federal government. So they paid for everything from airfare to meals to the class. So we try and take advantage of those free opportunities. What do we have here? Joe, what do we combine here?
The equipment purchase line and the supplies general, that's when combined up with all these, where we said the office equipment or the fire equipment.
Okay.
Those go.
All right, so we already covered that then. Equipment maintenance, again, if we have to put yep, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, just the blowing.
No, it's blowing cold air, my nose is freezing. The air conditioning's on.
We'll shut that one off so it doesn't blow on you.
Supposed to be heat.
Well, they fix that in the budget, because it's not even.
So EMS equipment maintenance, our monitored defibrillators, we have to have those serviced annually. Our stretchers need to be serviced annually, so that's basically what that covers. EMS training, so it's for initial EMS training, whether that be EMT, advanced EMT, or paramedic, and then refresher training. So all that, we have to refresh every 2 years, so that's what that line is. And medical services, we don't use that line anymore, so. Any questions about anything?
Question for Cheryl. So, looking at the actual right now, as of September 30th, it's 438. Can you like,
Crystal ball
what
it
do you
out.
think it will really be? Because when you look at the 438, and then you look at what they're requesting, that's a big increase. So, if we could kind of figure out, okay, it's 438 now, but then add 3 more months, you know what I mean?
Right, and I didn't bring my projection.
So that's on that other set where she does all the encumbrances and the,
Because if
Yeah.
you look at that, that's $200,000 increase.
Yeah, well, that-
That's why I'm asking.
but I think that was the reason why I said maybe they got to both go to the budget committee, because they'll ask exactly the same question without having all the rest of the salaries calculated in there and any other encumbrances.
Will you bring the crystal ball tonight?
No, I forgot my crystal ball. I can look at that tomorrow and,
Well, I guess
Well, I mean, if you look at, we have, in the budget, the default budget, we have 568, so it's still $100,000 increase.
well,
So keep in mind, a big portion of that is the salary lines. Because we never budgeted, we never put the money in for the fire chief's salary, and that's a substantial increase.
Well, we have the money for a 4th firefighter plus the $20,000. So we do have the money, it's just
Right.
wiggled around.
Right, well, we have some money, we don't have all of it. And,
was, I guess, I don't know, question for Walter or Cheryl, but weren't some of the prior years also supported by some of the federal money that we spent directly on budget items? That's what my recollection is.
Could be.
I think we have to look at that because there was several, we got quite a bit of money, especially last year, or maybe it was 2019. That's one of the reasons why I'm pretty sure 2020 is low
Right,
relative to,
right. And if you look at the 2019 actual, it's just under the request.
yeah, that's what I was more going by, I guess, is, but yeah, I'm almost certain even 2019 might have a little bit because we were able to go retroactive, but maybe that didn't get applied. So, Cheryl, if you could just check that so we have a sense of that.
yes.
And I guess just a double check on the police too. I don't think there was anything there, but I remember there was at least a couple big items, and we got a grant on something that we didn't have to pay then or something. And so there was a couple different things that we had in there that we didn't end up paying for out of our budgeted money. So I think we need to get some sense of that. And Beth, I think your point is good. Let's figure out what those deltas are and also the calculation through the end of the year so we can compare that.
And keep in mind a couple things. First of all, a lot of things we haven't spent money on this year because of the default budget. So we're trying to make sure we have enough money to pay the people. And it's almost 1,500 over my requested budget last year. So it looks like a large increase, but
No, let's ask Cheryl and Walter for some help explaining that delta, but I think we need to know that.
Yep, I can look at that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Well, compared to the actual default budget we're working with right now, it is a large increase.
No, it's 4 years.
Well, I know, I'm just saying, people are gonna look at that. We need to make sure we know.
You really need to be just comparing it to the previous year's budget in terms of looking at operating cost comparison. The 2018 budget give you much unless you factor in a 3% cost per year, 12%, 13% increase.
Well, let's get some explanations on that, because I think a good part of that is the federal money, but let's be sure. Other questions?
Not on the budget, but striker defibrillators, nothing, we're still covered and working on the best prices and...
They are. Since I spoke last,
I feel like to be at the top of the list when they come out, so...
I spoke to the Zoll representative and said, that Stryker is making a really hard push and they're giving us a really good deal. So since your quote had expired, why don't you re-quote it and see what we can do? And they came back with a price of $58,000 for 2 monitor defibrillators, which is a lot less than the $74,000. So they sharpened their pencil quite a bit.
And that's for the model that has that as-you-go heart
Yes.
monitoring and stuff
Yep,
like
so
that.
that has real-time viewing, so the hospital can actually see what our screen is saying. The Zoll is designed to work for pediatric patients, where the Stryker is not. We have to carry a separate automatic external defibrillator for pediatrics, and it has what's called a traumatic head injury dashboard, and that's way out of my league. I don't know exactly what that is, but the paramedics think it's a really good thing. So I can find out more information about that if we need.
So did Zoll give you like a written quote, is it estimate for...
They did, yep.
How long is it good for?
I think it's good until April.
So, I'm sorry, Beth, go ahead.
I have a question. So looking at the CIP, there's several things for 2022, $180,000 worth. So of any of those things in here, like I see hoses, or there was a hose thing here, I was just curious, like.
Yes, so some of the things in the CIP, like hose and turnout gear, are actually included in the budget.
Because you have you have hoses, radio, exhaust system, narrows ramp, defibrillators, and then you have expand narrows.
Right.
But that wasn't, the 180 was not that, because that's 850 right there.
Yeah. So the $30,000 for the diesel extraction system, we did receive confirmation from the federal government. We received an Assistance to Firefighters grant to handle that.
What was that? What is that?
Where is that on this? Is that,
Diesel.
The diesel extraction system?
was that on the CIP? Is
Yep.
that the exhaust system?
Yep. About 30,000. So that one's grant funded. The radios is year 3 of a 3-year radio replacement program. So that's 33,000. And then I most recently got a quote from Manchester Paving, a verbal quote of $35,000 to repair the ramp, and that would that includes digging up the old one, putting in a good base, and then repaving. So I know you've
How
been-
much?
What's that?
How much was the ramp?
35,000.
That gets me from the 20-year building to 107? Everything, all
Yeah.
up top what I see?
Yep.
Because it says 25 on there, that's why I asked, okay.
Yes, and Walter asked me to get a quote, so that's why it's 20,000. 25 wasn't quite enough, but and then the expansion of the fire station. As I said before, Beth, you may not have actually been here, but there's a potential for a federal grant for fire stations. It's going to be $1 billion nationwide, and they'll pay to build or add on just to fire stations, not safety complexes, not town hall fire stations, just fire stations. So It's important that that be in the CIP, so when we write the grant application, we can say it's in the CIP.
Yep.
And then the other challenge is it has to, at least in the grant application, it has to be shovel-ready. So there's some things we can do while we're waiting to, we do have stamped architectural plans, even if they may not be exactly what we want to use. Moving walls around is pretty easy on paper, so.
You said the 35,000 for your paving, is that grinding, or just they digging out the removal, grading, crushing, repave?
Okay, I got, okay, go ahead.
In the hose, you have 20. But on fire equipment, it says nozzle hoses, fitting tools, it's 11,000. So
Right.
not
So-
all the hoses you were hoping for?
No, based on what we lost for hose and testing last year, I think 11 is a more appropriate number.
Well, I got my question. Same one as we asked Glenn. Anything in this budget that might be covered or might be applicable to the Recovery Act money that we actually have in our coffers right now?
Paving.
I think if you included the paving as part of a road project, I think we could probably,
They just did the Barrington Fire Department with the road funds in Barrington.
Okay, that's a good idea. Let's just check all these.
Yeah, that wouldn't qualify. No.
I think you're more creative than that, Walter.
I am. I've also spent about 50 hours learning about what you can
Okay.
do and what you can't do.
Okay.
and then we had talked about the defibrillators coming out of that, but I don't know.
That's has more potential than.
I'd rather see that, I'm sorry, yeah, okay.
Well, it's more
No-
money.
Nothing else? Not fire hoses, not any of this other equipment?
I think probably Walter's the expert on that, so.
Yeah, again, you still have to be able to, tie it back to either infrastructure or, the Clean Water Act, or you have to, tie it back to COVID, which is how we may be able to get the defibrillators covered, if we can tie it back into the health emergency.
Sooner than later on that, too, 'cause if it,
I'd rather be at the top of the list when
yeah.
they make 10 of them and there's 50 people want them, so.
Right.
Well, how about we go through the budget process? I'll ask that question on all of them, and then maybe at the end, as we wrap up, we can talk about how we want to think about either dispersing some of that to help on this where we can, if we can, or move forward on at least what we think are the most critical items. So, as you say, we don't get into the supply chain problem and all these other issues that people are facing. I mean, you heard what Glenn said about the vehicle. I don't want to be in that situation waiting for a defibrillator for 2 years.
You guys get your pickup truck, you like.
Yeah, well, we did luck out on that. I mean, really.
Actually, both of them, because the one I got was on the lot, so.
Well, my daughter works for a chip manufacturer. She knew. That's part of why I pushed, but, Okay, anyway, anything else? Well, Chief, do you have any other departments or any other sections that you want to go over?
Not that I'm aware of.
You don't have as many as Linda, come on.
Okay,
I did want to mention, I did pull up the projected expenditures for the fire department. And again, depending on, what the activity is, of course, over the next 2.5 months, we had projected a $23,000 deficit. So that's why there's no gear that's been purchased, and, some of the training has been held off and so forth, but, as well as some of the hose purchases, so. But again, that's, based on, utilizing the funds for the call firefighters and so on and so forth, which probability is probably not as high as it is obviously predictable for the chief's salary and the career firefighters and so forth, so.
So this is the first year since I've been here, we've been at full staffing on the career side. So you know, that's taken a bigger bite out of the budget, and of course, being 4 years on the same budget is pretty difficult.
Yeah, did some of the Gopher funding get applied to last year's budget?
No, not the current year budget, not the 21 budget, the 20 budget.
2020.
Yes.
20?
Yep.
Okay, so that would be part of why that's lower then.
So we did buy, I know we bought some things on Gopher funding, like we bought a residential washing machine for the station, so
Right.
we weren't using that big industrial washer to wash sheets. And some other, we bought, I think, some UV lighting filtration systems for the ambulance out of that money.
Would that have normally been in the budget?
No, we just had an opportunity to buy it, and it was probably a prudent thing to do, so it kills all the germs as the air circulates.
The fogger too, I thought.
Yep, we had a fogger too, yep.
Okay. Wrap up, or any wrap-up questions for the chief?
You said back like in your part-time wages, you're hoping to get like 2 people on every night.
Yep.
What qualifications am I gonna have with those 2 people?
So it's generally at least one basic EMT. We try to get, more advanced, like I said, with one of our career staff getting his advanced EMT. We should be able to provide an advanced 6 days a week. And right now, we can just have a driver as a second person, but that's going to go away soon. So it would at least be a first responder on the second person.
So it's at least one EMT.
Yes.
What are we doing on driver's education for the big trucks? How are we working on that? That's a lot of weight.
It is a lot of weight. It kind of scares me because it rides so nice.
That's my dump truck, 73,000 pounds, a lot going down the road.
So we did some training at the at Co-Brown, maneuvering through cones and whatnot. I did contact the state, and we're trying to get a certified driver operator course here. They did say there's quite a line, so maybe we can. I know one of our people is going to driver operator in Auburn, so I think it's important to get them certified in that and just continue with training. Before anybody can drive it, they have to be signed off by Greg, our deputy, and he drives a waste management 10-wheeler every day. So, the key is just it doesn't do you any good if you don't get there. So,
Let's see, something like bolted to the back of that floor so that truck can't back up any farther, because that with the chute, somebody doesn't close that chute out, you're gonna be in the bedroom pretty quick.
yeah. So we did get some stops that bolted into the floor, and usually we just get it so it hits on one side of the duals, but we got it so it hits on both duals on one side and one on the other, so it gives you more of a, as you know, sometimes you don't feel stuff. So,
Do you need a CDL to drive that truck then?
fire department is exempt from CDL.
Health card, all that good stuff.
Okay, I think we're digressing from the budget. Any other budget questions? If not, then, Chief, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate everything you're doing.
Chief.
You're welcome.
Okay, so, next up is Chris. Anybody need a break? Okay, Chris, what department do you want to start with?
That was me. Thanks, Chief.
Start with
Thanks,
highway?
Mark.
What page?
The very bottom of page 11.
11, yep.
One line, you gotta kick that over to them.
I know.
So,
I think we're gonna have to expand it.
Chris, you just want to go over the highlights to get us started on the discussion?
Sure. So most of my budget, if you guys look at it, is pretty similar to what I've had in the past. Few increases, few decreases. Money added to where it was really needed, and money removed where it wasn't. So for the most part, it's pretty minimal increase over last year's budget.
Beth, I'm waiting for you to ask the question about actual versus the request.
We're at 143 now, 144 and 200, so.
Yeah.
Who was the general road, well, not the general road laborer that we've not paid any money to obsolete? Was that the other position before we made it a foreman?
Yeah, that's when we combined. Basically going through it, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, the general labor with the foreman salary, we added that in this year versus last year we didn't. So there's basically no increases there. The health, dental, and all that good stuff. You'd have to take that up with Cheryl because I have no clue. Call crew stayed the same. And going down through basically telephones, that all stayed the same. Cell phones, we don't have town cell phones. We're using our personal, so we cut that right out of the budget. Electricity, heating oil. As you guys know, we have a waste oil furnace now. So, contracted services, permit fees and supplies. The contracted services, I'm pretty sure, didn't we lump all that together?
Yeah, that's the roadside mowing, the building and grounds maintenance, grading, and outside contractor work.
Okay. Just makes things a lot easier for bill paying.
Isn't the roadside mowing later?
Yeah, that's in the maintenance budget. That's why there's only $1 in there.
Right. Okay.
Going on to fuel, we've been pretty decent with our fuel consumption. Our largest consumer obviously is in the wintertime. We have 4 trucks running, plus the backhoe with off-road. So we're definitely, it's a decent number, so we stay within it. Equipment maintenance, maintenance and repair, that's all combined now. So, we're an increase in that one. Basically, where are we? Trainings and conferences. Hopefully, T-Squared will be open this year for some incoming trainings and stuff, so I can get Jeff signed off on like culvert installation, things like that, especially having certificates. So that'll basically about the same. The 250 was encumbered in that, so it's pretty decent. Electric, heating, oil for the recycling building, department tools and supplies. Pretty sure that was all added up too, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was all moved to either the equipment purchase line or the
Yep.
contracted services line.
And then going to, any questions on that section?
Right, just the recycling building, I mean, is that way back through a warrant article? Can we turn that into the highway building now? Is that still ever gonna be the recycling building? I know, you know,
It would have to go through a warrant article to be changed, because it was, yeah, because originally it was
we
bought and
take it out of
purchased.
recycling and give it to him, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, how we do it.
I'd have to defer to you on
I'm not sure I understand the question.
That
So
building.
my DPW shop is actually the recycling building. It's technically the transfer stations building, but it's sat vacant because it was an undersized building for what they originally intended on doing.
They had the money to build the building,
So-
but none of the money to put the baler and the cardboard
Build,
thing.
drive through, and then,
So it wasn't feasible for what,
But technically,
for
it's
anything.
DPW building.
so
recycling building.
it sat vacant for 3 years and then they
Town,
turned,
belongs to the town. I think that's, unless it was funded under a grant or something like that for the transfer station, it's a town building, so, what we call it really is, what it's being used for is probably is appropriate.
that. Well, we're doing all our recycling of plastics and paper directly.
the building was like we drove through it, like how Pittsfield is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call it the big green.
So
Big green building.
That would
I
never
think
do
the
it.
question is, how did the building get there, isn't it? Was it a warrant article? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm not
Is that what you
sure.
were asking?
I would imagine have to be,
Right.
for that kind
And
of
then,
money.
because it wasn't a warrant article, how does it get changed to a different use?
Doesn't, again, it's a town-owned building. I mean, again, if it was funded from an outside source or something like that for a specific purpose, then it would have a different issue. But, the fact that it said transfer station building on the warrant, doesn't preclude the board from utilizing it for
I
other
would say if
things.
it's still like the transfer station, like building, that, what, did you take it out of your budget, the dump budget to buy the waste oil furnace, you know what I'm saying? If it,
That came out of the,
That came out of that transfer station,
okay.
so, because it's beneficial to both of us, so,
Yeah.
rather than paying for hazardous material versus, so.
All right,
Okay?
moving on.
yeah, I think for the most part that, looking at the request there, it's, more of, again, trying to catch up, versus the default budget on, mainly salary expenses and so forth.
Well, we didn't have Jeff there for, what, when did we hire Jeff?
I didn't have them for the first
8
5
months.
months of the year,
7 or 8 months ago.
so. He came in and,
And we didn't have him,
We had them last winter.
You filed last winter?
yeah, the very beginning of it, the very end of it.
Yeah.
we're talking about 2020.
Yeah.
He wasn't there in 2020.
No.
Nope.
I mean, that's part of the big delta there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just be real clear, or real blunt about this. I'm a little bit concerned that we spent $215,000 back in 2018. And then, we didn't spend as much, didn't spend nearly as much, and we're gradually bringing it back. But from my perspective, these are the people that get the stuff done in town. If we don't have the money there, we're not going to get the other projects done that we want to get done. So I guess what I'm wondering is 2018, we were already within $7,000 of what you're talking about here. Are we okay with the, I guess,
But some things are not here anymore, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like it says
Oh,
combined
is
with
that-
highway, combined with highway, so
oh, okay,
You know what I
I
mean?
see what you're saying. Yep, now I do understand that, yeah. Okay. Okay, well, that's good enough an answer for me for now. Any other questions on this particular area? This is highway administration? If not,
I do have one question.
oh, yeah, go ahead, Beth.
Equipment maintenance. Group. A computer, which is, that's whatever, and then general tools, and a compactor for trench work.
Yep, the one-time
So that will
purchase.
save us money eventually.
Well, so it's about $125 a day to rent one. So, it's a $3,000 purchase, $2,500 to $3,000, so.
A 400 pounder?
That's a 400 trench compound, yep.
Yeah, my company ended up renting, and it's like, well, we rented it all last year, we could have bought it 3 times over, so.
Yeah, so that's, that one's obviously up just a little bit, but that's a one-time purchase.
Are we ready to move on to paving and reconstruction?
Yes.
Okay, so, what's your thoughts on this? I see we have the quote block grants, which is basically just we're saying we're going to put aside a certain amount
Yep.
to deal with whatever comes up. Would
Yep.
this be separate from our road paving plan or ultimately included as part of our road paving plan?
So it's going to be included as well, but it's also
Oh,
for a warrant article.
is this it, Walter?
No. Because it's 2022.
So now's the time to talk about this, or?
Well, this is basically just giving you the picture that's been developed for 2022's, road improvements projects. And this includes, both primarily surface maintenance for all of the town roads for 2022 that have been selected in different treatments and so forth. So this is, based on the study that was done. I'm still waiting for the final report, which we should get hopefully, in the next few weeks, but they put together 2022 for us based on, the input that Chris and Bob and I provided, and they'll have the next 4 years for us in the final report. But obviously, budgeting for 2022 is what we need now.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good number. I mean, it says we're maybe on track here.
Well, again, you have to remember, this is just surface maintenance, okay? So it doesn't include, the other projects that we have to do that, involve the culvert replacement, that involve trees and all that stuff that goes along with it. So the target is still $350,000. This just represents the surface.
That part of it.
The surface maintenance portion of it.
Okay. I'm with you now. Okay, so of that 350 that you talked about, is that separate, or is some of that included with this $100,000 block?
So we would, again, like we're doing this year, planning on having some of it come out of a warrant article and some of it come out of the operating budget, like out of the block grant, for instance. We would utilize a portion of that for the $350,000.
Okay, so your intent is still to keep steady with the amount we're spending?
Definitely.
Okay, so then, and we've got 100 in the budget in case we don't pass the warrant article. So at least we can do some stuff and maybe not fall behind as much.
Right.
So sort of like a safety valve, so to speak. But really, if we wanted to keep on track, we really need the full 350, so we need that $250,000 warrant article approved. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, so we can talk about how we want to fund that. So maybe we fund that out of fund balance.
Which is part of the plan, to fund some of that out of fund balance.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, does anybody have any questions or concerns or comments related to the amount that we have in here, especially that $100,000, which is the big number?
You might mention too, Chris, about, we'd like to do 2 major culvert projects.
Yep.
That would be contracted. That would probably, run somewhere in the $50,000 range
Each or total?
total.
Total. So there's three culvert replacements that we're going to be looking at next year. All excessive 4-foot culverts. So,
We cut the line on Bow Street?
yep. So there's one on Bow Street, that 4-footer, that's 64 feet long, something like that. Goes diagonally across the road, and it has a full flowing stream all summer long, everything. So, and then the other 2 are on Old Turnpike Road. So.
Those are the doubles? So the 2 different ones?
So there's a section that's double. One's poly. When the road washed out, they put in 2 4-foot culverts then, but never replaced the original galvanized one that was beside it. So that one in turn is failing, and it's pretty significant.
That's the whole,
failure.
like, bridge?
It's in a sense it looks like a bridge, but it's actually Jersey barriers just buried.
Oh, okay.
So thank God it's not a bridge.
Yeah.
Retract that.
So.
Cut that out.
So I'm nervous that 35,000 is not enough for that.
But no, that's going to be part of the $350,000.
Okay.
Of which 269 will be surface maintenance.
Okay, let's,
Yep.
Any tree work deal with these?
okay, so I'm missing this here. So we got to do 270 of surface work.
Right. Another roughly 50 to 60,000 in culvert, contracted culvert work.
Culvert.
Plus the culvert preparation we have to do for the roads that are going to get reclaimed and resurfaced.
Okay, so that's another 40 there,
Yeah.
is what you're saying. What about, like Tim mentioned, trees and stuff? Is that a separate line? I thought it's
So
all
our-
separate.
We do have our tree line.
We have tree work built into the maintenance budget.
Okay. And that includes the trees in anticipation of any paving or road work?
Yep.
So we're staying ahead a year on that?
So with the money I have left over this year, I can actually have ArborCare come in on a daily rate. And basically, they would take off on 4 different roads that I have for them to look at. And they'll basically do as much as they can for that, basically the amount of money I have left over for the year. So,
On like prep road work, or are we still doing any like ash tree work?
well, that would come out of the terrestrial, I believe, wouldn't it?
Not that much money in there is the problem.
Yeah, we've already spent that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But,
gone.
you know, we would,
I mean, obviously, like Bow Street and stuff, I took down 15 trees myself. Took care of those. I mean, most of the tree work and stuff, if there's no lines involved, I can do it myself. The ones that are overhanging lines, obviously, I'll have to have a tree company come in for those. So,
yeah, and it will obviously, you know, if there's any of those ash trees that are within the, you know, proposed reconstruction roads, then obviously those will be addressed at that point in time.
And
so
in
12
the funds, it comes out of this?
out of the 15 I took down on Bow Street were ash. So, but,
I'm surprised.
There's a lot back there.
yeah.
Okay, so,
And obviously, you know, we've got money in the budget to handle the hazardous trees.
Yep.
And obviously, they were ash trees, but if they're all maples, they still had to come out, do the road anyway, so
Yep.
it is what it was.
Right.
okay, show me where that is, please,
What's that?
the tree work.
Well, so you're under the highway maintenance and cleaning.
Cleaning and maintenance.
Here's where I'm struggling a little bit, Walter. I've seen $9,000. Am I missing something?
No, that's the amount that we have budgeted for the tree work, the outside.
Oh, and
the
you're planning
outside
on doing the rest yourself?
Most of them I can do myself, but 9,000, so when you guys are thinking of tree work, I think you guys are scared about Tasker Hill. So the $25,000 whack, hit, definitely won't come on. So we're not talking about major trees like we were then.
Those are 3-foot pine trees, he's talking about, 15
Yeah, these are, they set up basically, they're there for 20 minutes and it's down on the ground, so. We do have a few that are, especially one on Old Turnpike Road. There's 2 there that are, one large pine and a large oak. So I mean, obviously that's probably $2,500 to $3,000 to do those 2 alone, but there's enough in there for preventative.
Well, the only reason I'm asking is we had made a commitment that we would get the tree work done before we do the road work and make sure it's done correctly.
Yep.
All done, not having to,
trees, stumps, and
Yeah.
grind them with
Yeah.
trailers.
and you're comfortable given what we're planning on doing on the surface, that 9,000 plus what you can do.
Yep, so most of the resurfacing, if you look at actually at the road plan, most of the stuff is basically going back and top coating what we've already done. So most of that work has already been done in the first place. So there's no grinding, there's no base, no binder, things like that, so.
Well, I did see milling.
There's a little bit of milling in there, yep.
Milling is just taking them up an inch or 2.
Yep.
Okay,
That's not grinding.
Yeah.
Milling is just,
got it.
When you do grinding, it's just full sub base, 14 inches depth, so, versus milling, which is just like a couple high spots here and there, things like that, so.
Well, like I said, I just want to make sure we got it covered. But I think ultimately that saves us money in the long run.
Yep. Are we on to highway cleaning and maintenance, or you want to go back to the certain stuff?
Wait a second. Oh, yeah, I'm ready if others are.
Good.
Ready? Okay. Highway cleaning and maintenance.
So obviously, like Hal talked about, the 9,000 for the tree work. You notice a big change in contracted services. Basically, most of the work I would like to keep in-house and not have to put out towards contracting. So basically, just took a portion of that line and moved it towards my rental line on the other page. And that in turn will allow me to have a mini excavator for 6 months. a chipper for a week if I need it here and there, a week here, a week there, whatever it may be.
So Chris, I got two questions on the mini excavator. And as much as I would like to own one personally, because I know how nice they are, do you seriously think you have 6 months worth of work?
I could easily make 6 months' work for that.
Okay.
So in the 2 months that we had the mini excavator this year, we did 13 culverts and 2,700 feet of ditching. So,
Okay, so the related question I've got is, I remember we made a big deal about buying that front-end loader backhoe with the knuckles so we could do, so why can't we use the backhoe?
Go ahead, I'll help you with this one.
So,
I'm writing these notes down so when I go
unfortunately,
home to talk to my wife.
unfortunately, doing culverts, doing any form of culvert work with a backhoe it's not really conducive. You can be done, like we've done it, trust me, it's not fun. With a mini excavator, you're allowed to work over the trench. You can open the whole thing up, track back and forth, not cave it in. Ditching wise, you can track down the road, and it's just, you're slowly moving as you're working, and it's so much faster.
I didn't hear anything that would help me sell this to my wife.
With the backhoe, you're taking the
No,
dirt.
no, I mean-
you know what I mean? Oh, yeah.
It's all culverts. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm digressing, I apologize. So, okay, so you're comfortable that you got 6 months and then some of work?
I could easily do 6 months of ditching, oh yeah. Just in maintenance ditching I could do.
And I think it's important to point out too that, because I've done this in other communities, is that it doesn't work every day, granted, okay? But it's having the availability of being able to utilize it for, number one, emergencies, but having it available when you need it and can schedule it and the weather cooperates and so forth.
Because you could rent it 1 week and not be able to use it at all.
Well, this year it rained the month of July.
Yep.
So that didn't help. And then, of course, they got pulled off Public Works to go do the transfer station, so, but.
And also with that excavator, there's a ton of attachments that can go on that thing. You could get, we have a company I work for, has a roadside mowing, but he could do the ball fields, he could do the transfer stations, your flail mower.
Oh, yeah.
There's many, and I would look at prices on, we have a wheeled, the same size he rented on tracks, we got one on wheels, driving around, so it's.
Okay, so we're renting it, so we're not making a firm commitment, but you'll demonstrate next year that you used it.
Oh yeah.
Okay?
Yep. So in preparation for next year, this year when I had the mini excavator, I was able to do a couple extra culverts and stuff. When you get down my culvert line, you'll see that. So I was able to utilize that a lot more in preparation for next year. I've already gotten some of the culverts done out of the way, a little bit of ditching here and there. Like I said, it's so much easier just for us.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
You brought up the subject, they bought the brand new swivel for it. It's still sitting, same place the salesman dropped it off. Hasn't been used once. The former road agent bought it, it was too big for that machine with the extender hoe on it. So I make a suggestion to Chris to sell it back to Beauregard for either tires for the backhoe or some maintenance charges or hoses or something, because it's just too big for it. It's brand new, sitting down there behind that, never been used one day.
So, okay, so that's a separate issue than the budget, but Walter can...
Get rid of
Yeah,
it.
okay. Okay, good. Okay, so any other questions on cleaning and maintenance? If not, then let's move on to snow and ice control. I'm just going to start out, Chris, by saying I see the contracted services way down.
Yep. So if you look over the history, 18, 19, and 20, we haven't even spent close to even 60. This year we're at 32,000.
Okay.
Going back through the numbers in records that I found, most of our trucks 3 years ago were six-wheelers. So at $95 to $100 an hour versus small contracted pickups, 1 tons are at 75. So there's a big fluctuation in price there, plus, unfortunately, I hate to say it, the weather patterns are changing, so.
Yeah.
And we do more.
We do,
in-house.
yeah, most of everything is done in-house regardless. If it's a small storm that we can take care of with our 4 DPW trucks, it's just an ice event, whether it's black ice on roads, we can handle that ourselves. So I try not to call out the contractors and, unless they're needed. If we know it's going to be a 12-inch storm, they're called pretty ahead of time. They already know it, so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're saying it's going to be a heavy snow here, or a heavy winter.
There it comes.
Yeah, the almanac does. Okay, any questions on the contracted services or how much sand and salt we're buying?
We'll lock in with Granite State, Elkie.
So, originally, when we set everything up, salt was at like $73 a ton. This year, they got our bid in. It's actually $10 less a ton than it was last year. So we have a choice. I could talk to Walter probably tomorrow or this week, with either staying with Granite State or going with either stay with Morton or going with Granite State. So there's $1 difference between the tonnage. So we'll figure that out, but we should be able to.
We just weren't happy with their billing.
Oh boy.
Get the white stuff, not the brown mush.
I tend to favor Morton just because it's a better product. It's the actual solar salt versus Granite State is kind of the bottom of the barrel. So.
Okay. Okay. Any questions on that? Otherwise, let's move on to sanitation.
You don't want to talk about street lighting?
Did I skip that one?
We used to have more lights.
We got no lights at this time.
Moving on to sanitation.
So knock on wood, we're still at full staff. Haley will be back tomorrow.
Good.
So, most of the stuff, sanitation-wise, is pretty straightforward. No increase, really. The only increase was salary lines. Obviously, our full-time guys are a little bit more than what our other guys were, and things like that. So, unfortunately, we got to pay to keep them. Other than that,
Any questions on the folks that work there at the transfer station? If not, let's move on to solid waste.
so solid waste, you're going to see a pretty significant increase here, just because we're working on 3-year-old numbers. And obviously, our tipping costs and transportation costs have increased, just like everybody else's, fuel's up, things like that. So you'll see a couple lines in there that are increased, transportation especially. So that's one of those numbers we've always run over every year, even prior to me starting here.
Well, I think we, in the past, have just sort of focused on the overall lower number, which is 126. Because, stuff gets mixed and matched and, different things. And
Yeah, we think this year we've got things broken out, but, I think this is a budget that we're just going to have to continue to look at towards the end of the year, because it may be underfunded at this point.
I'm afraid it is, because we haven't hit the end of the year where we typically see a spike.
Yep.
Right.
I'm concerned that we're going to be over 130,000 this year, which means, any price increases next year, we're going to really be in trouble.
Now, is that tipping fee, is that the contract we're gonna run out? Or what is that?
Not yet.
That's waste management.
Yep.
That waste management contract, which I think was renewed not too long ago, right? Was that a 5-year?
The cardboard one is one we renewed. Our actual MSW, that's due in 2 years, because we're still under Lamprey.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So we have, 2023 is, I think, our negotiation year. 2024, we're back on our own. So,
It's going to be,
Pete LaChapelle, which is my management guy over to Waste Management and handles my contracts, is pretty sure that he can bring us in similar to the same rate we're paying now, probably $10 or $15 more, but,
That's 4 years out, 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
It's right around the corner, too.
yeah.
That's,
Good.
that's after we get done with Lamprey.
Yeah, so I've been in contact with him for the last 2 years, just trying to keep my foot in the door and make sure we can stay that way. But,
Okay. Well, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the 126, but I'll defer to others on that, but I'm a little nervous. I'll just say it.
Well, I mean, last year it was requested 136, so why did you think 10,000 cheaper?
just because we've separated things a lot better.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
So
yeah.
we don't have everything going in as one before.
Yeah.
Basically cardboard and plastics, we were actually paying almost $800 a load to get rid
I
of.
do feel a little better. Plus, we're recycling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
So,
No, actually, I think that's a good point. Yeah, that cardboard bin gets
yeah,
That
yeah.
was a bigger container, too.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah,
God.
so all that helps. So, okay, so,
So in a sense, we actually broke down the transfer station a lot better than, like I said, recycling margins are up probably about 30% this year. Revenue is through the roof. I haven't gotten a total to date. I know when I first started, our revenue stream was around 10. And this year, I think I'm around probably 35 or 36, so.
And again, we'll just have to kind of monitor that as, our costs come in for the next couple of months and see if we're going to, if the remaining 26,000 is going to do it or not. It's going to be close.
it's going to be very close. Well, we're going to be over. I mean,
When did we
we're
get
we're
that?
already at 100,000, and so we're spending at
That's
the
beginning
rate of
summer?
33,000 a quarter. and
Yeah,
have
we
our
didn't get it
heaviest
till late.
quarter coming up.
I don't think it was delivered till July or August, because we ordered it at the beginning of summer,
Okay, all right.
and then build date, so.
Well, we'll see.
But we
Yes,
actually
yeah.
were able to recycle a
Basically, we don't
little
have to lock it in
more.
tonight.
Yeah,
So maybe
okay.
next year that would be a better number, too.
Our generated revenue from that is about $1,300 a month, so.
So that's a significant amount of material.
Yep.
Fix your mug. Can you hear that?
It's his cup.
Touch your mug.
Okay, we're going to move
There's
on.
not water in there.
You need more tea?
Now we're definitely moving on. Any other questions for Chris on this? Okay. Well, we did get a lot done this summer,
I do have
Chris.
questions about CIP for Chris.
Oh,
That's-
go ahead.
That's next.
Yeah, while he's here, let's do it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. The first question I have, on 2022, you have a new six-wheeler warrant. So we have in the highway, the new six-wheeler for 135.
Right.
In the highway capital reserve fund, we have $125,000. So were you going to propose that we add 10,000 and then buy the vehicle outright? Like that's the plan was a few years ago, so I'm asking.
So that's one of those, in the CIP, if you look at it, it says, use warrant article plus what's in the capital reserve fund.
It just says warrant, doesn't say.
It doesn't say, so I mean, we can use a portion of a warrant article and, like 80% of the capital reserve fund, because that's what intended, it's for, obviously. That's why it's not a whole whack to the taxpayers.
I'm hearing infrastructure.
Well, I think what we'll,
Well, no, because, that's why when we had the highway committee, we talked about still putting money into that fund to just buy the truck instead of having to have another lease, because we have the big dump truck that we have we're on in March, will be year 4 of 7, and the backhoe will be year 5 of 5.
Correct.
So if we were able to purchase the big truck and pay it, and just buy it, not have to lease it, it's a better savings. You're not paying a finance fees and stuff, and we have the money in there.
I understand what you're saying. The only thing I'm hesitating just a little bit, I don't know if it's something we should consider or not, but if there are other items coming up in the following years,
All of my done, I get more.
well, let me just say it this way. Perhaps we might want to consider funding a different way this year while interest rates are low.
Say money's cheap.
And then, you know, I mean, CIP is going to be 5-6%, and so the interest rate
Well,
might
I
be 5.
understand, but that, we've been telling people for the past 5 or 6 years, we're gonna put $18,000 into the.
Oh, we still put the money
No,
in.
But to buy something, not to, because
Yeah, I
we have
understand,
$130, $125.
understand all of that, but if we can,
you took
if,
part of it,
I mean, think about it, if the interest rate is 6% on $120,000, that's like $7,000 a year, and if we can save that,
Where's the 6% coming
If you can, but if you can buy it, you just saved it.
from? Oh,
I mean, that's what I'm
oh,
saying.
you're speculating.
I'm speculating.
Oh.
But if you have the money and you buy it, you've saved this 6% every year too.
This year, you wouldn't save the 6%, you'd get financing at a low rate this year, is what I'm saying.
But you're still paying an interest rate.
Yeah, but what'd you get on the last vehicle? What was that?
Question.
About, 2.25.
Yeah. All
2%
I'm saying is,
Yeah.
interest is cheaper right now, so, you know, we should at least think about it. I understand exactly what you're saying, and it'd be nice to just buy it outright if we can't call it infrastructure.
No. I think
We
if
have
you
it,
look
we
at,
have it in the capital reserve fund, we have the money.
I know.
So, and then my other question was, you said you would like to rent the mini excavator for 6 months,
Yep.
because you're asking to purchase one the following year,
In 22 or 23?
23, the following year,
Yep.
23. So I would say you would have to really like keep track of how much you use that mini
Yes.
excavator to make sure people realize that, I have no idea, what was the price, $18,000 or whatever to rent it?
For 6 months, yep.
For 6 months. What would a mini excavator cost? You take that and break it down by 5 years. I mean,
So-
so if you're going to ask to rent one, keep good track of it, people are going to ask that.
Well, the other thing, I'm just gonna throw it out, Chris, you know,
he's got the answers.
So in total, approximately $55,600 was saved on culverts and ditching, just in 2 months of having that mini excavator. So that's roughly about 112 hours, man-hours, should I say, you know, between all the projects and actual replacement of culverts, plus the 10,600, I think was. Yeah. So, in a year's savings, you're talking about almost $60,000 a year savings.
Well, we wouldn't have done those projects.
What's that?
We wouldn't have done those projects.
No,
Right. So
So-
what does a mini excavator cost?
125.
So if you can rent one for 6 months at 18,000.
Basically, I'd be renting it for, figure 20,000 a year.
Well, but
20,000
if you had a mini excavator, you probably use it more than 6 months out of the year. So
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're going to rent it for a year, it's $40,000 or 36, whatever.
Right.
So make sure you use it so people understand that
You're right.
it's an investment.
It is an investment, so.
Yeah, it has a number of different avenues for savings. And one of the things that we would attempt to do is try to negotiate either all or a portion of the rental that we use this year towards a purchase price if the voters support purchasing it.
Rent to own.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's basically what it is.
with no commitment, obviously. So I've done it in the past, and it's worked out well. I think to get back to the truck though for a second, my recommendation would be to, look at using a portion of the reserve fund, using a portion of the fund balance. I wouldn't recommend borrowing anymore because I think we carry too much debt already in this community. So, and again, we're only getting 0.5% on our money at best. So paying 2%, we're still in a negative situation cost-wise. So I think when we get down to actual finalizing the warrant articles, because we are looking at we're looking at another truck in 2027, which is going to be $130,000, and so we're not going to be in a position to, if we use all the money, we're not going to be in a position to do the same thing again in that short period of time. So I'd like to have continued conversations about that as we draft up the warrant articles.
I think to continue putting money in the account, because the debt that we
Absolutely.
have now, it'll be paid off in a few more years.
Absolutely. I agree.
So you have nothing in the CIP for the transfer station? Just curious. why?
Can I put in a transfer station? So, unfortunately, I thought there was one for compactors in there.
No.
That's we put it in the budget to.
In the budget.
To replace one of the
Okay.
motors in the company.
It was a compact power head replacement for
Right.
Yep.
$3,000.
So just to think about it, because, it's spending out, 10, 15 years, so.
So unfortunately, well, fortunately and unfortunately, unfortunately, we've outgrown our transfer station probably 10 years ago. And we'd be looking at a whole new facility at some point and taking
Got the
that.
green building.
I have the green building, yes. Which the plow trucks don't fit in, by the way.
Right.
But, so yeah, but there's also things in there, like in the capital reserve fund for the transfer station that of purchase prices as well. If I have a compactor go down, I can have purchases of that I can make out of that. But if we're going to be looking at anything, it's probably going to be looking at a full transfer station at some point. So I think I've done as much as I can. There's a few little upgrades and things that I've done that I can make better, to make the public a little happier. But there's not really much I can do there. So.
Yeah, and I think,
Could you, because the piece of property,
Just the property and the layout, and obviously where the burn pits are is the landfill. So nothing can be excavated there. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard spot with that place. So we don't have enough.
a rock in a lagoon.
So, yeah, we're really at capacity in there is what it is. So it'll be down the road. It'll be a discussion.
it would depend too on whether you continued full recycling or if you went to like a single stream or something like that, which, again, I went through this process once and did the whole analysis in terms of the cost, the investment and the capital cost versus what you might benefit from in a revenue stream, and found that the money we saved, from not building a $2.5 million facility went a long way to subsidize whatever revenue we lost, especially in a down market. So those are conversations that are going to be critical, I think, to making that decision. Build a facility for $1 million or build a facility for $2.5 or $3 million. I think Guilford just spent $3 million on their facility, on a full recycling facility. So,
The full recycling.
Recycle/police/
yeah,
The way we were at right now, as far as there was, people are happy with the single stream cardboard and plastic because obviously we're not putting the cardboard or the plastic back into the ground. But we're right at that margin where we're making money, but we're not like losing money. So it's kind of staying with the balance that we're at right now is where we want to be. Because I don't ever really see us going for a full recycling facility because it's
not on that site. Yeah, that site would have.
not on that site. I mean, not to mention the amount of employees I'll have to have and the equipment and stuff like that. I mean, you're talking a humongous investment, probably in the
You
$4.5
might need a mini excavator?
What's that?
You need a mini excavator?
Yeah. I would need bobcats, I would need a forklift, I would need, yeah. So you're talking probably $4.5 million investment to do a full recycling facility there. So, not on that property though.
Yeah, it just wouldn't fit on that.
No.
Good question about that.
The question that my grandson asks me all the time, why do they just throw all the glass over there? You're killing my earth. I'm like, oh, gosh.
Actually, believe it or not, we're not. So
He's 6, he's very precocious.
does he know that the glass is actually a secondary filtration for the lagoon?
The lagoon. I shouldn't call it that. Sounds too
We're
fancy.
digressing here, we're digressing. Anything else for Chris's budget? Okay, if not,
Well,
You have more on CIP?
No, because you're also doing the facilities, so did you have anything about facilities?
So that's pretty much rolled up into the individual department budgets. We haven't looked at, other than a fire station, police station / public safety building, we're not looking at any major
Not
capital.
like painting or anything like that, so? not
Oh,
just
yeah,
like-
those are all incorporated in the facility budgets for the different facilities.
Thank you.
Unless Matt has anything on the center school at this point.
No.
So,
Okay,
nothing, we're not looking at anything yet.
thanks, Chris.
Overall.
Do we want to have Chris wait for non-public, or what do we want to do?
Yeah, we can wait for a few minutes. We're going to just spend a few minutes on maybe one or two other small budgets,
Yeah.
like the selectmen's.
We take a break,
Okay. 2-minute break?
2 minutes.
Let's make it quick. The more we can cover tonight, the less we have left over for later.
Okay. Everything got signed, okay, good.
Did you get the manila folder back?
Yes, I did, thanks.
You're welcome.
Do you remember that day
Yeah.
the Saturday budget meeting in here, and it was like 45
Sometimes too,
degrees?
when they're on heat like that, you actually have to shut them off and restart them for the heat pump to actually kick on. So,
Are they in series with any other ones?
no,
No?
no. Our one at the transfer station that do it, and the one.
The
at
one in the, we can go in the rec offices, that one's working. I bet you it's nice and warm.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know what it is.
This was a double meeting night for the Fries. Jen was off at the SAU restructuring committee meeting.
Sox are up 2-1.
Yeah?
That's all I'm understanding.
It's only the top of the second. Top of the second.
All right, just wait for the first Grand Slam. There'll obviously be several, you know, it's
Because I got another error. Good.
Yeah, they're falling apart. I knew you wanted to know.
I didn't think they'd make it out of the wild card.
I understand they interview other guys. Oh, that's right where we want to be. I want to be like in first place and having like a week off before I play somebody. The rest, this is where we want to be all year. We're struggling with your life to get in.
Well, it's better than golfing at this point in time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's,
Season.
okay, so, what,
If we want to just go to the first page, we'll just look at some of these budgets on the first page. I think we can get through those pretty quickly. The first one being the selectmen's budget. Again, I don't know if there is any desires for anything different as far as the compensation for the selectmen. We didn't, there was an amount that was proposed higher in last year's budget, but wasn't here for that conversation, so I don't know
how folks do?
what that was about, but.
We just do it for the fun of it.
Right. And, you know, I'll be honest, I wouldn't have a problem with an equal distribution of the money either. So, we don't have to discuss that now, but we'll leave the overall number the same for now. And then when we see what we get, we can discuss, but that wouldn't be a problem for me. Well, let's see who gets elected chair. I shouldn't assume I even get reelected, so.
Give us a raise when you get elected.
Yeah. You wouldn't have a- Okay, and again, just, looked at, some of the other smaller items, really, there wasn't anything for travel for selectmen, and obviously if, when and if trainings are back in person, certainly that could be a case where, travel over to the government center, local government center or something like that. Same way with training coming back online. And the rest is just the relative associated salary costs. So moving down to the town administrator's budget. The salary amount was the amount included in my contract, so I hopefully would receive that if I've duly performed.
You don't take
Met
the
your
health package?
expectation. What's that?
You don't take the health package?
Yeah, that's all done in a lump budget under benefits. Yeah. Everything else is, the associated costs for Social Security, retirement systems, et cetera, insurances. I carry a town cell phone. Also included in my budget is the storage facility, document storage that we have at Archive America, which we now have a list of what's in it. So, yes, yep. I'm sure.
Dave Ruth would love to see that.
It's a partial list. There's
Oh.
about half of the boxes were labeled and half were not, so we know.
A list
what
of what's
half
in the
boxes
archive.
are.
Yeah,
Is that place in Massachusetts?
yes. Yeah, we just had to retrieve some paperwork, and it cost us like $200. So. But, again, we don't have, that type of storage in this facility.
So are we still sending stuff down there?
No.
So how old is the stuff that is there?
It's the stuff that needs to be retained, under our retention schedule. So some of it we have to keep forever, personnel records.
Was it cheaper just to get like one of those pods, like a storage pod?
Again, this is kept in a proper environment, for maintaining files and so forth.
Gotta be careful.
It's it's not put in a tractor trailer,
And I'm sure they'd probably have fire suppression system and all that good stuff. so.
Yeah. But at least we know what's there.
You know we're spending $1,000 on.
Yeah. And there is a point in time, and we're running out of space now for storage documents. I know the town clerk just freed up a bunch of space downstairs for her to refill with, ballots and things like that were ready for being destroyed and so forth. But, it's, I don't know, I guess we can look at cheaper ways of doing it, but I'm not sure what the options are. Then dues and so forth, of the membership dues for the town administrator, and training and travel for conferences. This year, I didn't go to any conferences as of yet, so haven't spent anything there. Got a couple coming up in November, but they're not going to require any travel or whatever, so.
Those are called ski trips. You can't take.
Yeah.
So I got a quick question, if you
Wishful
don't
thinking.
mind.
Wishful thinking.
Only out of ignorance. I see dues is in a lot of places. Is that just something that people need to do as part of like your job type of thing?
Yeah, these are all professional associations that I belong to.
Okay. And that's part of the position you hold type of thing, and other people have to be part of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. That's what I thought.
So that, that particular budget obviously reflected back to the previous budgets was up because of the salary difference and associated benefits and so forth that go along with it. Anybody have any questions on that? Moderator, we've maintained a stipend for the moderator. I believe that is based on that based on hourly? I guess we actually haven't haven't had a bill submitted by the moderator
The last 3 years.
for the
there
last
hasn't
3
been any
years.
expenses, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I just forgot the country.
just generous people. But we do have the provision there, and certainly they're entitled to submit their payment request for that.
That's probably about right, given the number of elections we have.
Bob never took it either, right?
Well, let's see, it was Robbie.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah, I made the $8 an hour or whatever.
That might have come out of elections versus this particular moderator budget, which I don't know why is a separate budget, to be honest with you, but maybe next year we'll combine that and then just in the elections cost, which is really where it belongs. Would you agree? Thank you. So make a note. Make a note for that. Want to continue?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the next couple.
Okay, so we'll look at the executive office. So again, this is another area where we've divided expenses for staff into departments that they actually work for. And so we've taken out the building and assessing clerk and put that in the building and assessing clerk's department. And we've kept a portion in here for Carol for her executive responsibilities. If I have that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So why building and assessing was ever in this particular budget, I'm not sure, but you'll find when we go over those particular budgets that that's where her remaining wages and expenses are located, so. And then as far as, that's where it comes up in the municipal administrative assistant salaries. Again, these are all been reassigned to other duties, same way with the land use and specialist and the administrative assistant. Those are all come out of this particular budget and put into what we think is appropriate budgets for those expenses. And of course, we've redistributed all the FICA and MEDI and retirement and et cetera that goes into those positions as well. And then we drop down to, I don't know what fees from land donations expenses are, but obviously it's something we've never had, but there's a placeholder there for it, and perhaps someday I'll find out what it is, but I'm assuming there might have been a point in time when there was property donated to the town, and there was a recording fee or something like that that may have been expensed against this particular budget, which would have been appropriate at that point in time, but I think it was a one-off situation. Looking at contracted services, again, a lot of these are functional, operational maintenance contracts for the copy machines. We have a data destruction service that we subscribe to, which takes away all our confidential papers under a secure agreement. Copy leases, water cooler, Legend software, that's for our website hosting. And then mainstay computer support, that's for our support for all our departments except for police, which is under a separate contract. And then we have,
Well, the one at the copier, Lisa.
happen to know that?
Not off the top of my head, no.
This last meeting.
Soon, because you want to call one.
I told you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
I haven't,
I think it just broke like yesterday.
I haven't actually seen that contract, but I'll have to.
What's that, Susan?
What do you think, Susan?
You know? That new copier?
Yeah, it's not
Must be a little over a year, because they were here when I got here. Yeah,
Oh, 10 out of 10 years left, all right.
we'll check it out. No, it won't be that long. It's probably usually a 3-year, they're usually 3-year contracts. But Depends on who negotiated, I guess, sometimes. They can be a little longer, too, so. Printing and advertising, so these are for the town reports and voter guides and notices for public meetings and so forth for the executive department, which would be the Board of Selectmen primarily, and the administration ads, so, not for planning or zoning or anything like that, so.
There was a newsletter printing come in, Hal?
I think Walter's got it covered with the website, to tell you the truth.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great to get those little notices now. So software, this is just for our small little Adobe software that we use for sending out things for approval and so on and so forth. We cut back the number of licenses on that after, we started meeting in person and so forth, so. General office supplies, again, copy toner, batteries, et cetera, standard. Postage, again, we've allocated a percentage to the executive department for, mailings and so on and so forth. Again, as part of that 15,000 that was originally the lump sum budget amount. Books, periodicals, we've got a proposal for 3 new computers that need to be replaced or aren't scheduled to be replaced. I just met today with, at our annual review with Mainstay about our hardware and software needs, and that'll be something that'll, I'll have probably probably before the November 2nd budget meeting, and we'll talk about, what's being proposed. These computers that are budgeted in here are actually scheduled for replacement in 2021, and, depending on where we are as we head towards the finish line, I would like to see us at least work at replacing some of those so we don't have to appropriate, this money for them in 2022 for 2021 replacements, so, but I'll have more information for you on that. at our
All the
next session.
computers do we have computers that are new enough to deal with all the security issues and different things?
So
Are we at risk on some of those?
we've got some real challenges that we're going to be facing here in 2022 in terms of our server and the proper protection. And there's a couple of programs that we still operate on our server that are not available in the cloud version. So we have to maintain a server at this point in time. Most of those are associated with the town clerk's office. So they keep saying, one of them is actually Avatar, our assessing software, and one's associated with the town clerk's office. So they're telling us that they're working on, a cloud-based program for those two particular functions, but at this point, we don't know what that date's going to be, and we're going to lose our support for our server in 2023. So we're at a point where we need to take a look at whether we just maintain a small server and go cloud-based, where we can avoid, about a $40,000 capital upgrade for our server and associated systems, versus investing all that money and then perhaps looking at, 5 years down the road, which is what the cycle is for those hardware pieces, going that route, assuming that those top two software programs are going to be already cloud-based. So we'll have more of a discussion on that, because there will be, a capital item that'll be addressed, in that for that topic at that point.
Okay, but for now, what you have in the budget and what you're planning on doing covers this from a security perspective. We don't have any
Right.
that are so outdated that we can't.
Right, right, yep. So just moving on to, equipment maintenance. And repairs, again, that's just keeping us going here, yeah. Keeping old equipment operating and whatever equipment maintenance that comes out of that particular budget. We've got our New Hampshire Municipal Association dues that we benefit from every year is $4,000. And I think that's the same as this past year, is it, do you recall, Cheryl? Yeah, it was, maybe up slightly, but it's pretty similar to what it has been in the past. And then we have an employee Sam's Club membership program that's pretty minimal for us. Travel and training, fairly minimal there as well. So that's what we've got under the executive budget. The next budget is the restoration of records. If you remember, we started on a quest to restore and preserve our records in the town clerk's office. First couple of volumes were done last year, and so this year they recommended the next 2 volumes, which are smaller, and they've provided us this particular quote for $6,984 to go ahead and get those next 2 volumes done, which I think is in the best interest of the town to get those preserved. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to stop in downstairs to see what the end product is. I wanted to have Marissa bring them up one time, but just haven't had a chance. But they're great work. I mean, preserving those records and putting them in a binder that's all basically sealed and protected for a lifetime. They can't be handled. Getting your oils on them and that type of thing. So they do a real nice job. Plus, we have them backed up in a digital format as well. So.
I'm curious, it says volume 22 and 23. Like, how many more do we have? Is this like year 75?
So this will take care of the remaining, if I remember correctly, I don't have that sheet in front of me. It's in my folder here. But this will take care of the general town clerk records, these 2 volumes here. And then we move on to the vital records after that. And there's several of those that have to be done. And I think those ran about $3,500 each. But this will be an ongoing program.
We have a plan not to get caught up, so we're just...
Yes. Yep. Yeah, just biting the apple, 1 year at a time. But,
We put a little extra in earlier years to try to catch up to get beyond.
Right.
yeah, it never got done.
Yeah.
That
so-
was part of the problem.
Yeah, so are we caught up now?
Well, this year we did.
Well, we won't be caught up. We'll be 100% done. So
We spent 14.
that's going to take probably 4 years. Yeah, that was the 2 major initial volumes.
Right, because in 19 and 20, we spent 0.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, so we're a little behind in that schedule.
Did we get beyond where we have to hand process them, or that was one of the things that we talked about in past years?
Well, they all have to be hand processed. The oldest ones, which we did, okay, obviously the ones those are more challenging because of their condition and so forth.
Right, that's the ones, I guess, are we
Right.
beyond that sort of?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, that's why they're
the
less.
1980s right
That's
now.
where we
Yeah.
paid extra to get beyond.
Yes.
And then once we're beyond that, then it doesn't feel like it's as critical to get.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why these volumes
Carol's
are.
full, too.
That's why these volumes are down.
Yeah,
so you
so
don't
that's
fall
good.
asleep.
So we did sort of get over that hump then.
Yes. Yeah, it was a big. Those first 2 volumes we did last year was a big accomplishment. But $15,000.
Yeah. Well, we put the money in to do it and
Yeah.
encumbered it, so. Okay, what's people's appetite? Do we want to stop here? Do we want to have a non-public yet, quick? And,
And I think we should wrap
I
it
think it's
up.
a good time.
okay, so we'll stop there. Are we going to do some budget stuff at the next select board meeting, Walter? or we'll-
I think so. I think the schedule will allow us to do that. I haven't got anyone scheduled to come in, but we'll continue to do some of the ones that are, fairly quick to do like these here. See if I can get Cheryl to, we can, come on the 11th. I mean, the 2nd, I keep saying the 11th.
Can come whenever.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Good. Okay.
Make sure, if the doggy's okay.
Oh, he'll be fine.
Just need a little pampering.
So I'd like a motion to go into non-public for personnel reasons.
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Good night, John, thank you.
Second.
Bye, thank you.
Okay, so roll call vote. Jim?
Yes?
Beth? Tim?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Okay, so the logistics will be